God.
All right.
And I'm a boy of God, like those boys you're alone.
Ah, okay.
And
Boys,
you're
you're
a
Lord.
girl. You're a girl of God. You're not a woman of God.
Okay, all right. So we are all counting down to Children's Day.
Exactly. Not only those of us who recognize ourselves as children.
Okay.
Some may also be counting down to the inauguration of the 2 days after. That's a byproduct of the Children's Day, as far as I'm concerned.
Byproduct?
Yes, it is.
Wow. Okay.
Yes, it is. It's a byproduct of Children's Day because...
Children's Day is next week, Saturday, actually.
Yes, Children's Day is next week, Saturday. So you're going to begin your Monday with a new government. So
yes.
That's on you guys.
Cool. We're almost there. We're almost there.
Those of us children, we want to celebrate Children's Day that day, and not even with all the information that we've received from the counselors and the therapists and psychologists that have come to tell us we are not treating them right.
You want to go there again? You want us to be apologizing to children again today?
We should. Okay. So I was having this conversation with a few friends. I mean, forgive me. I was just, reading this passage in scriptures that says, children, don't provoke your
parents.
My parents, don't provoke your children.
Yes.
And I just imagine. So just imagine that your son or your daughter comes to you and says, Dad, no, in fact, he said fathers, not parents. Let's say your 5-year-old comes, Dad, you are provoking me. Oh
dear. Backhand.
Oh, it's right there.
Or you say, okay, I'm sorry. What exactly did I do? I'm sorry.
When they say that children as young as 10 years old can have depression. Yeah. For what?
Yes, and they can go through a lot. I'm going through a lot.
And that's, I would just say, define a lot.
You're not paying school fees. You're not paying house rent. You don't have to feed yourself.
What psychologists will tell you?
You are going through a lot.
What is the a lot? Please define a lot. You are not.
My best friend in class won't talk to me.
And that's a lot.
I can't get a hang of my homework.
That's a lot.
Yes.
Let me tell you what a lot is.
In her own world or his own world.
Let me tell
that's a lot.
Let me tell you what a lot is. A lot is the Federal Ministry of Aviation becoming Federal Ministry of Aviation and Aerospace. That's a lot. Because when I hear aerospace, it's about aeronautics and space
You're
technology.
Thinking about going to the moon, right?
And all those things. So please, what is the foundation that we have?
Wow.
And we're building that on. That's a lot.
We are about to start.
No, and then talking about to start, where we understand that, I think it was as far as last year, we were set to have or be establishing a Pan-African University of Aviation and Aerospace or something like that, or aeronautics.
Why are you being so negative?
No, I said that's a lot, right?
Why are you being negative?
No, I'm not being negative. They say it was established.
You start from somewhere. So, okay, these people, America has gone to the moon, Russia has gone, that has gone. So, it's when you wake up that is your own morning. So, it is our morning. We want to start working on it now. What's wrong with that?
So this morning you are saying doesn't sound like morning. It sounds like mou.
Take the u out. Thank you.
Okay. So now we were supposed to start.
It is morning time.
Fine, agreed. So when they say it's morning, we're supposed to establish the Federal University of something. And guess what? They're supposed to have a website. The website was supposed to be out like 3-4 days after that address by the Minister of Aviation. I checked it this morning. Connection lost or something like that is what I'm seeing on the website. You ain't saying not normal? It's morning, or is it still 6 a.m.?
I rest my case. Connection lost. I rest my case.
So that is what a lot is.
No, you're not joking.
Okay. I have
Connection
a website.
lost. Okay.
Wait.
My problem, Ayo, is 29th is what? 9 days away. People are asking their assemblies to approve huge sums of money as loans, you know. And you're wondering, but they're going away in less than 2 weeks. So what do they want to spend all this money on?
Is it the state assemblies or the National Assembly?
Both of them.
Well, it shouldn't surprise you much.
Well,
Because even in the national budget,
the president wants $800 million.
No. That one, we had a
It's
guest.
been on the ground, yes.
Yeah,
yes.
they said it's been approved
Well,
by the National Assembly.
What's their name says that it should not be disbursed.
Who? The World Bank.
No. They've asked the World Bank not to disburse it. Those SERAP.
Oh, okay, so SERAP is what agency of government?
Well, SERAP is not an agency. I think SERAP is speaking for the people.
Well, I
they're
agree.
Wondering, what do you want to do with $800 million 2 weeks before you go away?
As I was saying, the
retirement benefits for you and your people?
No. The National Assembly has approved it. You know,
they would.
Yes, but it is not.
Then when they call them rubber stamp, they get angry.
No. It's not going to be disbursed until after this government has gone out of office.
Oh.
Yes, that's what the representative of the National Assembly that we interviewed said.
Oh, they're not going to disburse it when the new government comes
Yes,
in.
the World Bank is not going to release it. Well, it's going to take quite a while.
But the new government didn't ask for it. So they're going to go by the current president's playbook.
No, government is a continuum, you know.
Okay,
government is a Well, let's thank the Federal Ministry of Works and Housing for our roads so far. Yes, somebody is in the studio this morning because the traffic was not horrible. Glory to God. Hallelujah.
Hallelujah.
Yeah.
No, we're not drunk. No.
But you know...
we don't drink, actually.
You know, there is also that allegation, and this is why I will also appeal again that the Federal Ministry of Works and Housing should please at least let the communication be sustained. So there is the thinking in some people's heads now that the whole work is being rushed.
And even with the rush.
And consequently, it could affect quality. Now, the fear is there because this government wants to make sure that they do it, they complete it totally.
Before they go.
Before going.
So they've got 9 days.
Yes.
8 days.
But we're only talking about the 3 kilometers or whatever that the federal government says is remaining in Lagos. How about the Ibadan end? One should also look at that as well. So I want to believe...
the Ibadan end is as good as completed because I applied that route in January and it was looking...
Yeah, but after the... I think between the toll gate and Ojo, I think that's the challenge that they're also considering to fix. I'm not sure.
If they're talking Lagos-Ibadan Expressway, that's another part, isn't it?
Well, you could say that, but you could also say that it's part of the same because that road connects to the Ibadan, Ogbomoso, Ilorin road.
Oyo road, yes.
Yeah, so that could be a concern. I don't know. I don't have, you know, that.
But from what I saw this morning, I can't see this work being completed by the end of this month.
Well, you said they have 9 days. Miracles still happen, you know.
Because when the last time we saw the minister talking about it, he did hint that they had till the end of May to complete the job. Yes,
but the fear is that and I want to believe that, of course, I don't believe that with the Julius Berger in charge of the road, I don't believe that the quality will be compromised. So it'll be good for the authorities at whatever level to assure people of quality and all. Because when it rained in the course of the week, some people spent quite some time on the roads because on the Otedola Bridge, it was soaking, drenching, blocked.
Flooded.
So people couldn't pass through and all of that. I hope that has been ameliorated already. And hey, while we are looking at the ones that pay us, we have to also applaud that the Federal Ministry of Work has done a damn good job all over the nation. There are roads that have never existed before that have been fixed, quite a number of them. And you know, one thing that I often say is we need to communicate what we're doing. A lot has been done.
And the Niger Bridge.
Second Niger Bridge.
The Niger Bridge.
And what I understand
is a major achievement.
One of the things that
it had been spoken about for donkey's years.
So all those things, let government look. We know you're doing something. Yes, people may say, you know, may not look like much is being done. People may even say, hey, after how many days, I don't know, fine, but put the word out. Let people know that, look, these things have been done. And not just in, okay, you want to wait till you have done 10 or 20. No, please. What you do one, let us know. You do one, let us know. I mean...
Please be like the governor of River State. I mean, he does one, he makes a huge big noise about it, he calls everybody, roll out the drums, and we know about it.
Yeah.
And in 2 weeks' time, he does another one, he invites all of you again, come on, eat and drink, I'm opening another flyover.
And invites one big name to come
and we all know about it.
Okay. Well, one thing we have...
I mean, there's merit in that.
I agree. Kudos to Riverians. What do we call them? Those people from River State. River State people.
River State people.
Okay.
Even though sometimes they call themselves Riverians.
Riveria,
because
really?
the Cross River people are called Cross Riverians. Yes, our menu for today.
So what are we starting with?
Oh, well, new government comes in 9 days. So last week we looked at certain aspects of the agenda for the government because the government has its work cut out. So, you know, towing that same line today, we're going to be looking at the agenda. Well, another aspect. Agenda for the new government, saving the manufacturing sector.
So many jobs connected to that statement you just made earlier. And then, you know, along the line, the president-elect promised institutional reforms. Is that connected with any document that has ever existed? We'll find out in the course of the program today.
Then on our lifestyle segment, we're going to be talking about changes for a better living. Better, healthy living.
Because, you know, when someone tells you something, when someone says, in order for you to have a lifestyle change, you need to make some adjustments, but that adjustment is tough. You don't want to grow fat, but the allure of those foods, what am I even saying? The artist of the week this morning is a human being.
He is a he.
Not it is a he.
You can call him a it.
We'll ask him when he comes here. So that's the lineup for this morning. So grab your cup of cocoa.
Or cocoa.
Whichever one suits your fancy. And we'll be right back to get the show on the road.
Nigeria on my mind, born in diversity, blessed beyond compare. Ooh, through these 100 years, our struggles and through all our fears. We're strong in our unity. Peace, our destiny. Here we are. Here we are. Standing tall. Standing
Thank you for joining us this morning, and I would implore you to stay with us till the end of the program because, as usual, we have a very interesting package for you. And we're going to start with saving the manufacturing sector. A new government comes in 9 days' time, and we are all adding our own 2 bits to what we think they should be looking at once they come in. And the manufacturing sector is one of such areas. This sector is seen as a key sector in the nation's quest for diversification away from oil dependency. Well, remember, they've been telling us for some time now that our oil wells will soon dry up. What happens to us after that? And remember, when Governor Olubenga was leaving office, there was this huge book that was presented, and he actually brought one to our studio, Delta State After Oil. Many countries that live on oil are now thinking about years beyond oil because the oil isn't going to be there forever. So should we be left behind? What's going to happen to our manufacturing sector?
Which we had before very viably.
I was just going to add that my dream is to see all those companies that jackpot to Ghana coming back, the Dunlops of this world, the Cadburys of this world. I mean, we had the most delicious biscuits in Nigeria once upon a time, Barakat biscuits. Many of you younger people will remember the cow biscuit.
Yes,
Yes.
I remember
And those were made in this country.
Even your guest is agreeing that
What happened to us? Well, these are questions we're going to be putting to our guests this morning. It's my pleasure to welcome the MD CEO of Coleman Technical Industries Limited, who's also the chairman of the Manufacturers Association of Nigeria, Ogun State, Mr. George Olubenga. Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Joining us via Zoom is a chartered accountant, Dr. Olubenga Adeoye. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here today.
Thank you for joining us. We're so used to having you in the studio with us. This is unusual.
And strange.
Yes, a call to service in Egbaland.
Okay. Keep the flag flying.
Thank
Mr.
you.
Nofowoko, like I said at the beginning in my opening, my dream is to see all those factories reopened. Apart from everything else, it will also provide employment. Where are your thoughts regarding the manufacturing sector once this new government comes in?
I think for me, we have to look at it in 2 ways. First, we've got it wrong from, I'll say, the 70s till, and I think democracy brought something else into the picture, which is for us to review a lot of things and to have a say in what we're doing. And the more say we had, the more review of the situation. If you look at doing the democratic since 1999, I think we've seen some improvement in the manufacturing sector compared to pre-1999.
Please explain that.
Yes,
Explain that.
we have. We have to be fair. If you look at it, that just as you've just said earlier, it's not only the biscuits. Yeah, apart from the Dunlops, you have all the Odutola-based companies, the tires, the glasses, the mirrors that we're doing in Nigeria,
car batteries,
the car batteries, the upholstery that was being done. All that died between the 70s and the early 80s. Today, what we're having is a resurgence of manufacturing because there was a refocus, a deliberate refocus into manufacturing, especially in the last 10 to 15 years. I'll say post or Sanusi period, Soludo, I'll say from Soludo's period, the whole economy was focused on both fiscal and monetary policy, on incentivizing the manufacturing sector. We didn't have lower interest rates until this deliberate intervention, I'll call it, and they called it that. And that started seeing some improvement. Are we there yet? No. Are we near where we were before? No. Do we need to go further than this? A lot more, because the sector still accounts for majority of the employment in terms of creating both micro, small, SME, medium scale, and large scale. We account for majority of the employment. And if you want to increase that, the government has to focus. Every government had to focus on the manufacturing sector. But going forward, where does this new government have to focus on?
We'll get to that,
Yes.
Mr. Onofo. But let's take the opening comments of Mr. Adeoye as well. As far as Mr. Onofo is concerned, Dr. Adeoye, we have made progress in the manufacturing sector. What are your thoughts?
Well, I think the challenge we've had in the last decade, or maybe 20 years, has been the problem of ease of doing business. So many manufacturers has given up on the government in terms of what government ought to do to ease business, in terms of, let's say, power, good roads. And so everyone resorted into solving your problem by yourself. But despite that, you are now faced with the problem of ease of doing business. And you can ask Coleman sitting down right there to transport cable from here to Kano is a problem. To move materials for manufacturing. One time I was dealing with soya beans to Apple and Pears. To move soya beans from the north to Ogun State was a problem, because you are going to meet retinue of barriers on the way, and you are going to pay money. And so a lot of people are giving up, not because they are not finding personal solution to manufacturing, but they are faced with the problem of ease of doing business. So that's very key.
Well, that's quite instructive, but let me come back to you, Mr. Onofo. You are in the sector. You are chairman of Manufacturers Association of Nigeria in Ogun State, so you are able to see things beyond your own company, beyond your own sector of the Manufacturers Association of Nigeria, because I know that you have different sectors, paint sector, agricultural sector, and all those things within the same association. What have we lost in the past 30 to 40 years in terms of manufacturing? I ask that advisedly. If we don't know what the problem was, dealing with it, or rather understanding it from the perspective of government, whatever government wants to do, people will not understand. As far as they're concerned, it's another white elephant project. So if we have an understanding of where we are coming from, and we're trying to build back to where we are coming from, perhaps it'll make some sense. Alera was citing some industries. I remember Peugeot. I think it was in 1975 that the head of state at the time, Gowon, opened, I think it was a Kaduna plant. And we had more than that. We had in Anambra State, we had in Ibadan, we had car manufacturing plants all over the nation, various kinds. She talked about the tires and all those things. We had textile manufacturing that was very, NTM was very prominent on Obakran Road. What have we lost? Is it just the investments that we lost, or just the employment? What have we lost, and how do we get them back?
If we go from there, we've lost too much. Because you've just mentioned textile. At a point, textile was the biggest employer of labor on its own in Nigeria, as you mentioned. They had the biggest union, they had the biggest labor force. And Nigeria employed the biggest labor in terms of textile in Nigeria. All those companies have technically more or less gone moribund and died. We've lost. If we take it from the magnitude of what we've lost in 40 years, I think all of us, we can't finish the whole day talking about it. It's unfortunate. And majority of the losses came from very, very poor fiscal policies. The reversal in some decisions that literally go from protecting an industry to literally killing it overnight because of singular selfish interests. Let's be blunt about it. It just means maybe one person is being protected over a magnitude of numbers. And because you want to see a gain either in an import-related transaction, someone literally changes fiscal policy to literally make one person or a few people very happy. They make their money and the rest of the industry goes comatose. And we got it horribly wrong with so many industries. Now, unfortunately, in those days, we had no say. All these industries existed in military times. A lot of them actually came out in military times, but they also died in military times, and which meant singular decisions that literally affected lives were not deliberated on or discussed in the magnitude at which we do today under its democratic rule. Good or bad, we all have a say. Whether they like to hear it or not, we have a say. Each individual has the rights to talk. We didn't have that at that time. So decisions that adversely affected us, even the manufacturer sector, no matter how much noise we made, it just didn't work.
But that's not to say that it wasn't under the same military that we had. It was in the 60s that we started having military governments. It was in those 60s that we were having the pyramids in the Kano, the cocoa plantations in the south, in the southwest, the palm oil and the rest of them, coal and also those things in the east. So they did well in those days under the military governments of the day. So what happened?
One person's decision reverses one other person's decision, and all of us have no say. But the reality is we've agreed it's gone horribly wrong over 40 years. But we need, it's over 200 million people. You need to create employment. You need to actually create capacity of consumption. And a lot of it has to deal with, we need to find, as you said earlier, alternatives to this oil. And we cannot build this country without building the manufacturing sector, which is processing. Even if you do, we're too much, you see, Africa has a problem, which Nigeria has. We're a raw material dependent country without processing. We sell the basic raw material and we buy the added value back. There's no way I can sell you crude oil and buy back petrol and you're paying the same price. There's no way I can sell you cashew or even sell you lead or any type of ore in Nigeria and buy back the finished product.
This is the most painful for me.
Cocoa. It's sad. For me, cocoa was something we ignored. The same way we focused on rice. I could not understand why we lost focus on cocoa. That was and has always been one of the biggest export generator for Nigeria. And we focused on rice for the past 15, 20 years, and everybody totally forgot what actually makes FX inside this whole agricultural chain.
Forgetting, my apologies for butting in, forgetting that it was cocoa that brought in the first TV station into Nigeria.
Indeed.
Cocoa House in Ibadan, how did it exist?
Still there.
It's still there. So we need to, and today we need to have added value. Processing of this cocoa into cocoa powder, into chocolates, and for export, rather than cocoa seeds that we pack into containers and we ship out.
I'll come back to you, Dr. Adeoye, but you know, there's something Dr. Adeoye spoke about the other time that I would like you to speak to as chairman of the Manufacturers Association of Nigeria in Ogun State. He talked about ease of doing business. And we've had conversations around this productive capacity of Nigeria, turning raw materials into, putting in the work, so to speak, in country as opposed to exporting them. To respond to some of the issues he raised about the ease of doing business, the understanding we had was that the federal government under the vice president's office was doing a lot in that regard, giving annual awards and all of that to those who have helped to ensure that those ease of doing business indexes are grown. What can you say to that?
Executive Order 3, Executive Order 5. It's good to write a very fantastic executive orders. The reality is what is happening in real terms. What Dr. Adeoye says is very true. I'm a manufacturer. As he says, moving goods from here to Kano, is it that easy? There's a JTF, Joint Tax Board. You can't even move goods from Ogun State to Kano, and you won't have each state asking you all different type of haulage. When you look at raw material movement in Nigeria,
Which translates into?
it's increasing cost immediately. Food, raw material, we have them. Problem is, when you move it around this country, you change a price of X, which maybe you agree with transport should be X plus 10% or 20% to your doorstep. It's okay, that is good business. But when X turns to X times 5, X times 6, not because the raw material was not reasonable when you bought it, but between taking it from point A in Nigeria to point B, the amount of cost in between has turned X to X5. Then the raw material has changed in cost. And then eventually the cost goes up. Then we have a problem of inflation. Now, the reality is the ease of doing business in Nigeria vis-a-vis the port, vis-a-vis transportation, moving goods around, for any manufacturer is negative everywhere. Now, we need to change focus on what we mean by ease of doing business. Ease of doing business, I think we've mistaken the fact that the ability for me to register a company is not ease of doing business.
Yeah.
It's the ability for me to run that company successfully
And profitably.
and profitably.
And sustainably.
That is ease of doing business.
Dr. Adoye, would you also include in this ease of business matter such items as interest rates, access to funds, power supply? Because it all adds up at the end of the day to how much you sell your product or produce for.
Let me say that forever, if we don't change or do something drastic about cost of fund, foreigners will continue to dominate our manufacturing sector. And I'll give you an example. In the US, interest rate is about 5.5%. In China, the same thing. I kept asking people, why do we have many Chinese companies coming to Nigeria to produce and run their factory successfully? I'm a practitioner, I'm a chartered accountant in practice, and I have them as tax client and then audit client. And I kept wondering, why are they successful? I found out that one of the major factors is interest rate. Now, when you look at interest rate that we charge, and I kept telling people, I do not know why Emefiele remained the governor of Central Bank up to today. I can't fathom this. How can you go to sleep peacefully when banks are lending at 30%, sometimes 35%? Mr. Onofowokon is there, except for the intervention of Bank of Industry in their company, which may not even address all their needs. To borrow, to get money from the bank, the rate is not reasonable. So my conclusion around that, when you look at in the last 40, 20 years, is that government has behaved like predators to industries and manufacturers in Nigeria. And you know how predators work. If you go to into the bush where you have lions, antelopes, and others, they are there simply to, maltreat people who are investing. And they forget that the citizens are the employers of those that are in government. And that's why I say that your second topic on Sunrise today, which is institutional reform, we need to look into it. We need to look at the Federal Inland Revenue Services. We need to look at the Nigerian Customs Services. If you see how they talk to people who import materials into the country, and in some cases finished goods that we do not have, they treat them like trash. They forget that these are the employers of the people. We are the employers of Mr. President from the beginning to the end. And so, how do you treat your employer? This Coleman, MD, sitting down there with you, is an employer of all the people in government. And until we change this psychology, NAFDAC need to come to realize that the people that are working, creating employment, they are the employer. That's how you are getting your salary, from the taxes that we pay. So government should stop behaving like predators. Predators don't feed the animals. If a lion walks into where you have antelope, all his attempt is to kill them. And that's why you have Michelin, Dunlop, all of them, and the textile companies you talk about in Ikeja, they left because the predators were so much on them, and when somebody wants to kill you, you just manage to escape after you've been hurt severally. We need to look at several factors. The governors in the respective states too, they need to have a special advisor on ease of doing business. The president needs to have, the offices need to be around the country. And then we look into it. We need to call all the banks and sit them down. Why are you lending at 30%? What is your cost of fund? If you put 1 billion fixed deposit in a bank today, if you see the kind of interest they are going to give companies, they will confirm to you. It's ridiculous. So where is the cost coming from? And then the central bank will hold meetings. After that, you say you are increasing the rate again. This is not happening in other countries. And so I believe part of what the incoming administration needs to do is to look at our interest rate, to look at custom services, to look at SON, Standard Organization of Nigeria, those that are in the pharmaceutical and food industry. You look at NAFDAC. You cannot be treating people who are creating employment like you are a predator. You want to just kill them. That's exactly a major problem. When they give us relief on power, that is welcome. So we're not going to be buying diesel. But the things that you are providing for yourself and struggling to achieve, they are still disturbing you. I'll tell you something. A man is selling feed in Abeokuta. He sold feed to somebody, the person paid him, and then few months, police said they are investigating somebody who transferred to him. This man was locked up in Alagmo for 87,000 naira, money he received for goods sold. So we need to educate our police. We need to educate the judiciary on how to handle commercial transaction. A young person was taken from Ife for receiving 2,000 naira for selling food to somebody. And police can travel 4 days to go and take that man, sleep in the police station in Ife, bring to Lagos. These are total nonsense. That doesn't make sense. And this country will not move forward until government officials begin to see citizens as their employers.
Dr. Adeoye, you didn't quite tell us how come the Chinese businesses are able to set up their businesses and survive. They're operating within the same economy that is asking for 30% interest rate.
Okay, why they are succeeding? Privileged information that I have, I may not be able to disclose about our clients. But interest rate of 5%, and in fact, all the companies you find in Nigeria, 90% of them are supported by the Chinese government, from equipment to raw materials to credit facilities. In fact, when they want to come, they are encouraged to go set up. Now, how will you compare that with Coleman that is struggling for himself, begging Bank of Industry, asking you for cash flow projection, asking you for this analysis and that, but the company that is yet to start is getting grant from the government of his country, is getting facility at less than 5%. He needs equipment. They ship this down to this place. So they will be better than us. And when you look at their turnover, when you look at how they are performing and growing, it's clear that cost of fund and the support from their government is what is driving their businesses.
Well, Mr. Nofoko,
Instructive.
at least now we know. I'm not even going to ask you to respond to that because I can imagine what you will say. But There was something that you said the other time, and both of you have spoken to the ease of doing business. The reason that is important is that, yes, we are talking just about the manufacturing sector, but the value proposition, the value chain that a vibrant, virile, productive, and sustainable manufacturing sector can bring to Nigeria is almost unimaginable.
Correct.
We've talked about cocoa. What Nigeria did, even with the cocoa plantations in the southwest at the time, was mostly to export them. So just imagine that in the entire value chain, we could reproduce, we could add value to those things and export them, as opposed to buying
the raw material.
your favorite dark chocolates and all those things in finished product, importing them from all over the place. For the incoming government, what are the must-do? Most of the time we talk about quick wins, but apparently, as you said, quick wins will give quick starts, but then quick deaths to some of these businesses. Sure. What are the critical things that need to be done in order for the manufacturing sector to get its spark on a sustainable level?
Some few things. One or two has been well detailed by Dr. Adeoye there. First and foremost, for us to do business, you need to raise capital. Now, I'm one of the big believers in DDI, domestic direct investment. We spend too much of our time as a country focusing on foreign direct investment.
Sorry, in your response, there's something that you said earlier that I want us to pay, that I would like you to pay attention to, which is, you said, ease of doing business is not just in starting and registering a business. Ease of doing business is in doing business sustainably and profitably and successfully.
Correct.
That's the angle of the question.
Okay, right. For us to achieve that, for any business, small or big, you must have a thought process that whatever I'm getting into is going to be viable. Now, for it to be viable, I need to be able to have that startup go from startup to full running to full potential of expanding, and to any business to see the creditors and the supply chain being credible enough to do business. Now, we as manufacturers, we look at the point of view of areas of FX. Quite a few things are also still raw material based imported. Some of them are local. We don't have, there's no country that has 100% local source of all its raw material. There's always going to be a mix. Now, the FX issue is very bad. The interest rate issues are very bad. I'll take the FX first. Now, we have a foreign exchange window that is like 3 or 4. I think number 3, NIFEX, INA window, then of course the parallel market. Gap between them, to me, doesn't make sense. It's too much gap. Now, we need to close the gap. Everybody agrees on that. We need to have a single window.
Yeah, the Vice President spoke to that also not too long ago.
We need to have a single window because in reality, the multiple windows gives room for, as it's always been said, rent seekers. I can buy $1 million, make 300 million in 1 hour. So what's the point of me manufacturing? It's just no point. So it's better than even me putting the money at the bank. So the gap is too much. It needs to be narrowed. The certain incentives that they've tried to put in for exporters to actually come into the window with some certain incentives, 60 naira, 65 naira, 35 naira. All these 5 nairas and co, I think doesn't make adequate sense of bringing these people into the picture, because if I've already sold the differences, and in reality, and this is the truth, the gap in between it is even being played on by exporters, because some of the companies buy from exporters, and no exporter will sell you INE window. It's just official mumbo jumbo in my own saying, because I'm in business. I've processed something for export. I've sold it. Why will I come and sell it at 460 to you? When I'm paying the raw material, you buy cocoa. The cocoa guide locally, even in Ondo State, in Akure, knows that It's 700 and something naira to his cocoa. He knows the international price. So he's not going to sell you at 460 naira exchange rate for the raw material of the guy processing cocoa. It's not going to happen. So that's the reality. So there's no manufacturer that is buying raw material at below price level. He's buying raw materials locally at the real price. So he wants to put that as input price. Then you have to actually have cost of running. The cost interest rate disparity is terrible. Now, NPL today at 18%, I understand the economics of trying to edge inflation of 22% against an NPL. Nigeria is not Europe, for God's sake. We're not a developed country. The impact of interest rate instantaneously affects inflation in most developed world. We are not. We are comparing ourselves. And sometimes when they roll out these statistics at the NPR meetings, I find it funny. Why are you comparing statistics of America and Europe to Nigeria? We're a different country.
Some people say that the people who come up, most of the people who come up with these policies is because they are not themselves businessmen or manufacturers. Do you see anybody?
Majority are not, let's be sincere. But we are feeling the pinch. It's just said it. It's very true. NPL discounting rate at 18%, put a spread of 9%, which is most 8 to 9% is commercial spread rate. You're already talking 25 to 30 at corporate banking. At commercial, you're talking 28 to 35. Now, even banks that some of them I speak to are already afraid of non-performing loans happening. So if you're afraid of non-performing loan, that means you're not going to lend. You're not going to lend. So the manufacturers are struggling. And that's the reality. So you want people to run businesses, employ people, create employment, but you are not putting the thing in place for it to run.
What assignment does the government have in that?
Oh, they have a lot. First and foremost, we expect them to actually review the exchange rate policy of the government. It needs to be harmonized into a single digit, into a single window. We need the interest rate. Thank God to Bank of Industry. We all keep saying it, even Dr. Ade. If there's no Bank of Industry, I think a lot of us will be in trouble even more.
You guys will be unbanked.
We can't find the funding. Bank of Industry does funding in 7, 8 years, and that has helped the industry. But we need to deepen DFIs in Nigeria. Bank of Agriculture, what is really, unfortunately.
How much can the Bank of Industry do?
God bless you. I was just about to say that. That is what I was saying next. It's one bank. In Nigeria that is government owned. How can only one bank be doing well?
Okay.
We have other ones that can help the industry. We need others to impact the same way one has done. Whatever we did right in BOI, can we not get them to? Yeah. So when you get these businesses getting the funding, what he said about China is true. I had one thing he didn't want to say. The crowdfunding pool in China is cheaper than that 5%. I'll tell you for a fact. Now, I'm always afraid when you have foreign Chinese company coming into my industry because I don't have the type of funding they get. What happens is that most of them have excessive funding lying in their bank that is not getting good interest rate. Wow. So what they do is crowd pool. I'll promise Alero here that I can give you another 3% better than the 1 or 2% you're getting from your bank. And you have maybe sitting $100 million in your bank. Of course, you give me $5 million. I prove my case in year 1, and I give you that money. I prove my case in year 2. If I come back to you in year 3 and say, can you add $10 million again to my business?
You don't
Thank you.
You don't have to ask.
So the ability to create crowdfunding in China is enormous. We don't have that luck in Nigeria.
We're running out of time, and this is getting really interesting. Dr. Ade, there's an aspect that Mr. Onofoko stated the other time, but I'll ask him a different question about personnel and capacity, when we return to him. Speak to the capacity of micro, small, and medium enterprises. There are those who speak to the fact that, on the one hand, they are strained, they are struggling. On the other hand, is the challenge they also have of business education or understanding how to run business sustainably. Many are said to run businesses for sustenance as opposed to sustainability. How do we traverse or transit from sustenance business to sustainable business for that business itself to outlive the owners? In this economy, what does the federal government, the incoming administration, need or have to do?
Very good question. I never knew I was going to come to channels this morning, and I had a discussion with my wife 2 days ago about some of the businesses we run. And I said to her, look at this young man, Chinese man, a client that is just 32 years old, 35. Look at what they are doing. And my wife made a statement, and she said, look, they were taught from their primary school. So the problem we have in Nigeria is that our curriculum is zero level about business.
Yeah.
How can you send somebody to primary, to secondary, and to university, and they don't even have an idea of how to run business? If you really want sustainable development, you need to educate the people, give them proper education. Work ethics is not there. People who are running businesses who don't even know how to keep records. I've given you an example about somebody doing legitimate business. You sold food. Another person says he's investigating you that you received money somewhere. This is not going to happen in other countries. So we need education for our people. Police need to be educated. In fact, government must declare a state of emergency on the economy and manufacturing sector. Now, the small and medium scale enterprises, you've rightly said, Ayo, that they are doing business just to be sustained, not for sustainability. And so a few of them, they will run these businesses for a while, and the next few months is Japa syndrome that you're going to experience with them, because the factors mitigating against their growth is so much and overwhelming that they cannot handle. And so, apart from the role of government, living like predators on businesses, government need to take action to do mass education for businessmen.
Well, Dr. Adeoye, there's perhaps a kind of spin-off. You talked about things that government needs to do and everything, and both of you have spoken to taxation. I saw one video.
I'm a tax expert.
I'm coming to that. Oh, good. So I saw a video recently of a haulage truck flipping on a video about 30 permits from one local government to the other within, I think, maybe about 4 or 5 states.
That's correct.
And 30. How? Okay, so someone watching us now just sent in a question. Can the National Assembly make laws criminalizing the taxation of goods as they are transported across the country? Can we have just 1 or 2 of those taxes as opposed to these 30?
But they still have to use arms as they cross.
There is a law in place that stipulates taxes collectible by federal, state, and local government.
How many are those?
All the taxes you see around, they are completely outside the law of the country. And you know why? The governors, and I repeat, the governors, they allow this because it's food for the boys. They just look the other way. And that's why I said until they see themselves as employees of the people. Look at the permit. There is a truck in my office. If you check the envelope, it's as big as this. And then you are wondering, what is all this for? What value are you getting? Try to open a business. You will receive visitors from local government, from state. In fact, every ministry now is now revenue generating.
Dr. Adeoye, I think you have answered the question in a way. Perhaps what we now need to do is find a way, perhaps you also telling the federal government, you and them, Mr. Onofo, that look, you guys are going to have to find a way to ensure that these laws are enforced, not to impinge on the capacity of businesses to do business. But let me ask you, Mr. Onofo, there's also the question of capacity in country. capacity of personnel, capacity of experts, or capacity of people to deliver expertly, professionals, technicians, and all of those things. Especially at this time where we seem to be losing more people than we are gaining. So, speak to that. Even if all the policies are right, the government is doing the right thing, and all the incentives are there, we have more than one BOI in Nigeria. Capacity.
Capacity boils down to what Dr. Adeyoye says, education. But in manufacturing, training. Now, do we have the capacity to build on the training of the infrastructures we have in terms of the capacity of the people, the human capacity we have? I'm seriously, maybe I'm too passionate a Nigerian believer, because I believe it's not about the amount of expatriates you have or the amount of trainers that are not in country that you have. It's the amount of people in Nigeria we have to believe in. Because if you yourself as an individual don't believe in Nigerian can do it, end of story. So there's no point. Now, for me...
Then, my apologies on that, but people are poor.
They
Many
are poor.
people just want to make a living.
I agree.
Live better than other people. So
we
taking
need to
the
stop
pain-
being selfish. I'm sorry. We need to stop being selfish. We need to deliberately want to improve lives. Look, you shouldn't be in manufacturing if you are not wanting to not be selfish. If you want to be selfish, it's the wrong business to be in. You need to, because when you go to work and you see the number of people, when the government is saying 30,000 naira minimum wage, I don't know any manufacturer in Nigeria that would seriously pay anybody 30,000 and get them working. It would not work. The reality is you have to pay more. You have to do more incentive. You are your own hospital. You are the one providing HMO services for all your staff. You're providing staff bus. I had to buy 10 brand new staff buses for staff. Why? Because I worry about the 200, 250 naira they're spending going back and forth every time. So if we look at what we actually do, we do more social services than anything. It's a burden on most businesses. But invariably, if you get them to come, if you get them to work, they improve over time, they improve the pay. Now, the reality is, yes, we need to also, let's be fair, the expectations is high, even on anybody. Our indeliberate attitude to life is to automatically feel entitled. A guy works for you, he sees his boss driving a car. He feels overnight he needs to drive the car. He does not want to take the time to get there. The patience we have in Nigeria today is very minute, which is why the Japa syndrome is very bad. We need to deliberately educate our people. We need to deliberately send the signal that if the government wants to do it right, we need to tell the people that, look, the future is bright. If you don't sell a bright future, I can't be patient for it. That's the reality. You need to sell me what gives me patience. If you don't give me the vision of that business, or say, in the next 3 years, we're going to do this, we're going to do that, this period, this period. Now, for any individual that sees you ticking each one, they'll be patient. We need to buy patience, but we need the government to help buy the patience. You cannot tell someone because an industry is doing well. Today, for manufacturing, the beverages are doing very well. But overnight, someone wakes up and says, I need to increase excise duty. Is it going to help keep those people? Because they are increasing. Please, you need to see the numbers. We see the statistics for manufacturers. The statistics from the beverage industry today in Nigeria is fantastic. But it should not mean because they're growing massively, it should be the first place we go and tax to collect more money. Why don't we look at how do they even increase more and start exporting? They have not even got there yet. But we're already seeing opportunity. I agree with Dr. Adeyoye. The manufacturers were the predator is the government. We are the prey. So we need to change. They need to be deliberate in actually believing that they need to convert from themselves in their head that they're no more predators. Okay. We need to enable.
Dr. Adeyoye, you mentioned something earlier about the curriculum in the schools. How it is not meant to groom entrepreneurs. Do you see a rebirth of technical schools, for instance, being of any help everybody wants to work in a white-collar job, just being an office, pushing files. But that's not really what we need to be a manufacturing nation, is it?
Of course. Let me say that wearing tie on your neck does not actually make you wealthy. A lot of people need to know that. Plumber in the UK probably makes more money than some other white-collar job holders. So, for example, in my state, Ogun State, there is a technical school in a location called Olobe. I think maybe Samsung or some other guys from Korea brought equipment worth over $1 million to train people there. As I speak with you, they have not opened any of this equipment to do anything. One of my team members at a Bioeconomy Summit group was almost crying because he was part of those who facilitated this facility to come around. You talk about Argos welding, undersea welding. I'm using, Coleman as an example. Most of the people that they need to drive these companies in manufacturing sector, they are not people with PhD like Dr. Adeoye. You don't even need a degree for this manufacturing process, and you can earn more. I used to tell people that it's possible for my driver to earn more than some graduates in some offices. Yeah. Why? Based on job description. So, technical school, the government is paying no attention, and I'm talking all over the country. If you go to Ghana, a bricklayer laying bricks for you, you don't need to be there. I visited Accra one day, and I saw how these guys were working without supervision, and they were so concerned about precision. And you heard the guy, hey, Charlie, shift 1 feet more, 1 centimeter. They were trained properly in technical school, the welders. But ask some people to do lintel of a house here, they would just go and put one small rod that the building will collapse. Most of the buildings that are collapsing in Lagos, how many times have you heard that from Ghana? Ghana, their structure would be like you are in the UK. That's why the white men are coming there to buy houses in dollars. So we need to revive our technical school. And I'm speaking to all the governors that have won either re-election or newly elected to revive our technical school. Let's build our labor together so that we can have people that we will send, bakers who bake bread, bakers who will put the right ingredients in the things that we eat so that we can have good health, mechanics that will fix the car properly and you will not have to return it after every 2 days. So these are the things we need. Okay. Fashion designers that will not fix clothes for you, and you will have to remove, the button will be removed on your way to the event.
Well, Dr. Adeoye, the message is taken. Come on, be nice. But Mr. Onofowoka, what will be your final words now? And even though we have just 1 minute, I'd like you to speak to your sector. Because, as he said, there are some people who, in the name of wanting to make profit and remain in business, they also compromise your sector and government in particular. In 30 seconds.
Well, I think for the manufacturers, what we need is government being listen. They should listen. They need to hear the manufacturers. They need to call MAN. They need to call all the the associations into the book and have an economic team that is thinking of Nigeria. I think we need to be positive, optimistic. We have a lot of they're going to make a lot of difficult decisions going forward. There's nobody that is blinded to that. But they need to soften those terrible and difficult decisions that have to be made. But they need to listen to the manufacturers, sustain those difficult decisions with incentive to balance their decision. If they don't, we will just be dealing with difficult decision and calamity at the end. That's the real way.
Dr. Adeoye, your final word?
The government has to face the reality and they need to become truthful and now declare a state of emergency on our economy and on manufacturing. And again, you cannot shave a man's head behind him. Call all the bankers, call the manufacturers, SMEs, and professionals together. Let's do a 7-page document and say, let's implement this for the next 3 years. We'll see how Nigeria will be transformed.
Dr. Olubenga Adeoye, Chartered Accountant, who joined us via Zoom. And we had in the studio Mr. George Onofowoko, MD, CEO, Coleman Technical Industries Limited, and also Chairman, Manufacturers Association of Nigeria, Ogun State Chapter. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for coming to look at this very important topic with us this morning. Sunrise will be right back with another interesting conversation. Do stay with us.
The Duchess International Hospital opened its doors in October 2021. The mission of the hospital is to reverse medical tourism. We take particular care here at the Duchess to bring together a combination of the brightest and the best locally, as well as Nigerians in the diaspora who are interested in returning to do very good work for the benefit of our patients here in this country.
The good thing is that we have all international expertise here, all international facilities here, international people working here. Everything is coming together in a space which was considered not great in terms of the availability of healthcare.
Axis Bank, of course, has been able to provide us with a robust range of products and services that has enabled us to deliver that standard and quality of healthcare that is integral to our mission as an organization.
Every day, life presents hopes, dreams, and challenges. Challenges that can become successes with a little help. Because a little help can empower you to go from despair to celebration. A little help can keep you going until the race is won. A little help can turn bundles of anxiety into a bundle of joy. And with Glow Data, you get much more than just a little help. You get the biggest data deals in town to make every day glow with small wins and big wins. Dial *777# to select your Glow Data plan.
Thank you so much for staying with us. It will seem like we're taking everything in that same economic space just so that Nigeria can be incrementally productive. Not too long ago, as you've seen, President-elect Bola Ahmed Tinubu said one of his immediate goals, that was in his conversation with the Secretary of State, U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken, is to implement institutional reforms and development programs that strengthen the nation's democratic institutions and assist the poor and vulnerable Nigerians. And Halera and I were just going through a list of those institutions that need the reforms. What do you have on your list?
Customs, immigration, the civil service.
Civil service. Even the vice president, when he became, vice president, was one of the first few things he was mentioning about. Maybe there is more. Let's ask our guests, both of them joining us in Abuja studio this morning. Dr. Oke Ikechukwu is a leadership and governance consultant. Thank you so much for joining us. He's right there with Dr. Toby Oluwatola, who is of the Center for Journalism, Innovation and Development. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Thank you.
Thank you
very much.
Yes, let me begin with you, Dr. Ikechukwu. So, first of all, when you heard this statement or you came across the information that that's the primary thinking of the president-elect, or one of his first thoughts, is institutional reforms. How did it come across to you? Are you hopeful, or you think it's just one of those things they say?
Hot air.
Well, it's not one of those things they say when you consider that his intention and concern is to make positive impact. I've been part of several reforms in the last 22 years of democracy, active involvement. Whereas the president-elect is correctly concerned about the need for reforms, I think he may need to think more of institutional and human capital reorientation in addition to reform. When you speak of reform, you can reform the structures. I heard you and Alero, your colleague, chuckle a little when you mentioned customs and the rest of it. Now, if you're going to reform customs, you can work on the laws, you can work on efficiency, you can even procure equipment. But your earlier conversation was about national productivity. That's the way I'll capture the earlier conversation with the two gentlemen. If I'm working in customs and I'm primarily and solely concerned about the increasing revenue for the federal government, I will not consider the impact of excise duties on national productivity. If I'm in FIRS and I'm only concerned about tax, and I'm sure as the two of you are aware, immediately, I think during the COVID-19 pandemic or immediately after that, companies in several places, including Abuja, were being charged to have their places fumigated. That's after being shut down for 6 months, some of them without any income. In other countries, the concern is, let's help these companies revive, because if they are working, there will be people employed. Yeah. So that's why I want us to first make that distinction so that the president-elect's good intentions are also not misguided. We need institutional reforms, but first of all, and most importantly, the service orientation of Nigerian institutions need to be refocused. Namely, Nigerians must be alive in order to pay tax. Companies must exist in order to pay tax. If you're taking material food items from local areas, and like you said, somebody will need 40 or 60 permits, nobody's asking you to pay that thing against the background of the value of what you have in the trailer. It may turn out that by the time you finish paying, you're getting only 18% of the actual value that will have been profit. And so you find that the issue is we need reforms, institutional reforms. We need also a new focus on service delivery. And that's why this is a good opportunity to also ask him to query institutions that are supposed to be, take Servicom for instance. The business of Servicom is a service compact with Nigerians, and every incoming president ought to actually get a brief from Servicom showing that as an institution that exists to monitor service delivery, it will tell the new president, look, in the last 4 years, this government has carried on, this is all the money spent, this shows that it was well spent. That then you're summoning institutions to pay roles, to play roles in national development, not keep them as silos that pay salaries. Oh, I'm working in this place, I'm working in the other place. The nation is going under. Institutional reforms, let him also look at the development banks, whether for agriculture or the others. How much are they given in the last year? How much are they given in the last 4 years into the sector they're supposed to finance? You look at housing, NSITF, how many houses have they built? That way you see that the new government will actually be gearing and fully geared to ensure that whatever reforms are being carried out at the level of public administration will be matched by the right attitude of Nigerian workers and Nigerian institutions.
Dr. Oluwatola, Mr. Ikechukwu has spoken about policy reforms, but sometimes it seems that the policies are all there, but they haven't been well explained to carry the people in these various agencies along. For instance, I'm sure customs policy does not allow them to collect bribes, but we know that all they do on the streets and at the borders is to collect bribes because they have not been carried along or they are not on the same page as those who make these policies. So the problem now is how to get them to fall in line with the various policies that are made.
That's an excellent question, Alero. And first of all, let me thank you and Ayo for having me today, and more importantly, for driving this important conversation around setting the agenda for the new administration on very important topics like manufacturing, getting the economy productive again, as well as institutional reforms. Mr. Ikechukwu said something, Professor said something very important when he said the core thing is productivity. Productivity is everything, and we've got to have a productivity focus. Now, one of the things that, before I get to your specific question, Alero, I also wanted to stress that this topic you've also picked around institutional reforms is important. It was Darren Achimoglu and James Robinson in their book, Why Nations Fail, that highlighted that really the difference between poor countries and rich countries is usually comes down to the strength of institutions. By the strength of institutions, I mean institutions, do they follow, is there a rule of law? Is there respect for property taxes? Is there respect for property? And is there transparency? Is there strong transparency in processes of how things are done and what the expectation should be? Nigeria, in most poor countries, Nigeria inclusive, you open a business, you do your financial model, you expect that, you know, these are your expenses, these are your revenues. But in Nigeria, you know, things just happen, you know, and there's an anyhowness to how things happen. You import stuff and duties that you didn't know you were supposed to pay, you end up paying. Things that are not clear. There's a general lack of transparency. When you're trying to get a permit, the guy at the permitting office is really just thinking about what's in it for me, and not thinking about how do we be productive. So when the president-elect is signaling that institutional reform is a priority of his, it's very important, and that's a great thing. Institutional reform is what we need. But in the end, what does that mean? 10 years ago, we had a report called the Orosoye Report that said that the cost of government was too expensive, and we needed to reduce the number of agencies. At that time, there were about 547 agencies. Today, there are 940 something, and about 541 corporations. The number has tripled since that report came out. And so we've got to be very deliberate about what we mean and how we go about addressing it. To your specific question, I think that a lot of the accountability and the signaling has to start with an attitude of the leader, a political will on the part of the leadership. You've got to come in on day one and show that a sense of movement. Show a sense of movement that indicates to everyone else this new direction. The new direction that we will not tolerate certain things, the new direction that productivity will be the most important thing, the new direction that corruption would not be tolerated. You've got to set that tone. Then you've got to have solid performance management in place. Professor talked earlier about Servicom, but several other institutes of government which should exist to provide accountability don't do that accountability job. Obviously, I will, because I'm a media person, and I think the media is really important in this role, and the Constitution, Section 24 of the Constitution, gives the media a responsibility to participate in government by being a watchdog and an accountability partner to government. So the government has to really carry the media along, both in its external communication and in its internal communication as well, in its internal communication to public servants across the country.
Dr. Oluwatola,
There's got to be
I'll speak to you.
A unity of focus.
My apologies. Yes. I'll come to you on that, because I believe that the major challenge any government since 1993 or thereabout has had is communicating with people. And without communicating with the people, they will fill in the gaps. But I'll come back to you on that. Let me take Professor Ikechukwu up on this one. Well, Prof, apparently there's been some structural adjustments to your title over time. I wasn't even aware of it, forgive me. But you know, the issue that, you know, this whole institutional reforms thing will have is going to be quite a lot. What, in your opinion, should Nigerians expect? I mean, thankfully, you said you've been through a good number of institutional reforms over the past 22 years. In terms of institutional reforms, what should Nigerians expect and how should they take it? I'll give you an instance. I mean, Dr. Oluwatola just talked about the 1,484 ministries, departments, agencies, and corporations of the federal government alone, according to Ben Akabweze. Now, if, for instance, the government comes in and says, the EFCC was a product of the police. It's supposed to be a function of the police. Let's merge the EFCC with the police, just for instance. And then the ICPC also is actually the job of the police, but because they weren't, you know, proactively doing it well, that's why we had to have an EFCC. So let's merge them all together. Is that the kind of thing that we are talking about in terms of institutional reforms? You know, essentially factoring in the Orosanye report, or there's something else that Nigerians need to understand when they hear institutional reforms and they begin to see that government is taking some steps along that line. How should they understand what institutional reforms are when it starts to play out?
Actually, what is to be expected is institutional transformation. In other words, reform the institutions so they function in such a way that they deliver efficiently and effectively and in a cost-effective manner. Now, you mentioned, it's interesting you mentioned those institutions, so let me stretch them further. If there's a case of fraud, probably a minister or a governor is arrested, the fellow gets tried and all, every other thing goes on in that regard. But look at it this way. For that fraud to take place, let's suppose it's inflated contract, in the ministry, you have procurement unit, you have transparency monitoring unit. If it's a very big contract, it goes also to what is called the due process office. Final approval is given. If there's something wrong, somebody gets picked up. Now imagine that if there's a case of fraud, you begin from the lowest to the highest level. The director of finance in the ministry is brought up for questioning, the procurement unit is brought up, transparency monitoring unit is brought up, due process office is put on trial. You find that the sense of culpability spreads so widely that the incentive to misbehave disappears. Now, I believe and I expect that when you speak of reforms, what Nigerians should expect is that institutions of state will deliver the services which will impact their lives, not announce budgets. And I'll give an example. If you recall the last Executive Council meeting of this government before it came a second time, the sum of 4.6 billion was approved to be used in setting up 6, model secondary schools in the 6 geopolitical zones. Also, if you recall, 2 years ago, thereabouts, I think Kebbi State spent 4-point-something billion also in building brand new primary schools across the local governments and I think the wards. Now, everybody says that's wonderful investment in education, and I tell you no, that is investment in education infrastructure. And if you look across all the states, we have a ruling elite that mistakes investment in education infrastructure for investment in education. So they will cut the tapes. Now, you and I know that a brand new building does not give you any lectures.
Yeah.
It is teachers. It is the teaching aids. It is the impact on consciousness of people. So you find that the kind of reform Nigeria should expect is not just an announcement of transformation. That's why I mentioned orientation and attitude. To begin with, the Orosanye report you mentioned, what was its objective? To trim down the institutions of state such that jobs that 2 people can do, you don't need 10 people to do it. But here we have a crisis because the current government has increased the number of such agencies and is creating more. That's a major issue. If you're talking about governance reforms, we must ask questions about organizations or institutions like NDDC, Northeast Development Commission. Are they helping public administration? Should they exist? When there are states, govern your state. So the kind of reform we should expect from the new government, if and when it's sworn in, is to drive efficiency, cost-effective management, proper orientation, so that institutions first don't work at cross purposes. You know there's interagency rivalry. At the same time, you're creating more and more institutions. Look at the laws, for instance, on civil defense, police, several others. They all have the power to make arrest and detain. Meanwhile, the CID department has not been disbanded. So these functions, picture a situation where there's a crime and all these agencies are together. Each of them will want to declare, I'm the one who solved it. So if there's a piece of evidence agency A has, it will not give it to agency B, and that's the rivalry you're talking about. So in all of this, putting it together to the substantive issue you raised, what should Nigerians expect? I would rather say, what should the leadership expect in order for Nigerians to remember again what it means to have a government? Leadership should realize that every expenditure ought to impact the welfare of the people. Every investment in infrastructure must have multiplier effect. Road construction, you spoke earlier in your earlier entry about ease of doing business. The point is there is ease of doing business, which may be limited totally to regulatory issues, but there's also the environment of doing business. And your colleague mentioned excitedly, in my view, the fact of, look, the policy is there, but who is aware of it? What's the level of communication? And communication is not an announcement, an advert for policy. It's drilled down. Real orientation within the sectors, within the institutions. Why you exist is to do this, and in order to do it, this is how to do it. Now, those are the kind of details we need. Not a state of emergency. A state of emergency will be an announcement. If you announce a state of emergency in education, have you gotten more teachers? Have you gotten more funding? What is it you provided? You just made an announcement and created the illusion that you've done something. Please don't make an announcement. Solve the problem and stop embarrassing yourself.
Dr. Oluwatola,
Yes.
do you think that removing the human factor, the human being, from some of these processes that we have to go through will actually affect much? I was at the passport office last week, and I was very surprised to find that those people are still running around. We can fill the form for you, or we can take you here, or we can take you there, even though I know that the Minister for the Interior, the Internal Affairs, has stated clearly that you should go online, fill your form online, pay online, book your date and everything online. And that, I suppose, was supposed to remove this human thing that I'm talking about. But those people are still there making brisk business. That's just one example.
and it's a fantastic example. So I think that ultimately institutional reform has to be citizen-centered and in the last few years we've seen a few attempts. First of all, we start from a background where the history of the military rule really made a lot of institutions around individuals, around powerful individuals, and not about service to the people. And because of that process, you know, you didn't have the systems that allowed people to be able to have agency. So you're trying to get a passport, and people have created a process where it's in your interest to have a friend there that you can bribe, because the process itself is very cumbersome. And you now have, you know, just like you rightly identified, whether you're going to get your passport or going to get a visa, there's a small industry that has been created around those processes. So the thing is, we just have to come up with people-centered reforms that make life easier for people. And I want to jump on the point that Professor Ikechukwu started, which is the point around having more people delivering service. The truth is, Nigeria may have several industries, parastatals and corporations, over 1,400. But what work are these people really doing? And if you and when you look at the numbers, Nigeria has, if you use the IP system to estimate, somewhere in the neighborhood of 740,000 public servants. And then if you add the state governments and if you had all the other agencies that are not in that system, you don't get to 2 million. That's about 10% of, that's under 1% of the population. If you go to the UK, the public service is almost 10% of the population, about almost 6 million, as opposed to a population of 67 million. So the reality is that we don't have a lot of public servants. The problem, because when we talk about merging institutions, people quickly start to think, oh, it can be political suicide, unemployment will result. The problem is not that we need to reduce the number of people that work in government. The problem is that we need to give them work to do that actually needs to be done. Work that actually makes the country more productive. Work that actually provides service to the people. We need more firefighters. We need more teachers. We need more doctors. We need more people who can actually provide accountability and performance management and track what agencies of government are doing and disseminate policies down the chain to the agencies and track the implementation thereof. Nigeria just released a national development plan a couple years ago, and that plan has key performance indicators. It has key metrics that we want to track. Granted, one may think that, okay, it may not be as rooted in the realities of current day Nigeria as it should be, but at least it gives a direction for where we ought to be going, and that's work. Making sure we implement that and we track that we are implemented is work that public servants need to be doing, and not just sitting in office, pushing files around and waiting for an opportunity to collect rents.
Professor, it is called the public service for a reason, but our basic problem seems to stem from the fact that those in the public service don't even believe that they are there to render service. They believe that they are big men and big women, and they should lord it over the people whom they're supposed to serve. How do you then cause a change in their mentality so that they accept that they are in the public service, and it is called a service for a reason?
Well, that's where leadership comes in. That is where leadership comes in and is critical. And I'll cite 2 or 3 examples, some of them deriving from experience working in the public service to administer reform. 2004, the Minister of Information, the minister made a simple point. This is a professional ministry. Information officers are supposed to dominate it. They're supposed to be well informed. And public communication must not be on national television because the Minister of Information has structures all over the Federation. So what do? Prepare content, send it out, get the people to know what to do, and that worked for a while. But then you move on to another ministry, and you find that the same problem persists. Where there is leadership, what immediately happens is that there is a template for public administration. There are reporting lines, there are key performance indicators, you begin to measure them. Imagine that in all ministries today we have the right type of people as head of those agencies who know what to do, who are really interested in public service. The first thing that will happen is that the bulk of the staff who don't know that they ought to make reports of what they do on a regular basis will be forced to do so. So, taking the example in information, we now instituted a practice whereby every chief press secretary, sent in a report to the minister every week. Out of that report, he tells us what percentage of it was published and what was internal communication. Because what Nigerians don't know is that every chief secretary is an employee or should be an employee of the Ministry of Information, because it is through him or her that information flows to the Minister of Information, who then communicates with the nation on what is going on in every ministry within the Federation. So that's the fact on one side. Then with that, something else emerges also. That's part of the crisis. All agencies of government are totally overpopulated. And so you find an office that you have probably 4 people, there are 11 of them who don't really have anything to do, and who probably agree among themselves, okay, you will come on Tuesday, we will come on Wednesday, Bayo and Musa will come on Friday. They are there, they are earning salaries. If no service is delivered, it doesn't affect their pay, and that's the crisis. So why is that happening? Why are people rushing for government job? Because what government ought to do has been undone or not been done, or has not been left undone for over 40 years, which is enable the private sector and entrepreneurship thrive. That's where jobs are created in all nations. There is no country that is doing well where you don't find more than 70% of the jobs coming from the private sector. But here it's all being shut down. And that's why I spoke about the environment of doing business. That's why you also talk about vocational school. Growing up, we knew there were driving schools. You will go there and spend 2 years. You're not just learning to drive, you also learn how to fix a car. There are plumbing, there are vocational schools, and all of that. So you find the full complement of human capital for a society is being produced. Now, all those things have been shut down progressively, so you no longer have plumbers properly trained. You no longer have places training professional carpenters and the rest of it. So everybody goes for a certificate and then begins to look for a job. On top of that, manufacturing suffers. Growing up, we knew there were construction companies. You know, you had to do construction. My older friend, now late, Chief, don't remember his name now, you know, had construction companies. So look at Nigeria today. When government is speaking of job creation, people are thinking of more opportunity to send in applications. Whereas what should happen, what drives the economy, is the reality of private sector enterprise as enabled. But the crisis in orientation, I'll keep going back to it. The conditions you're given for a loan, if you want to collect a loan to do business, the only reason why you collect that loan is if you hope to push drugs. Loan you collect at 30%, what are you going to do? What is it you'll do to pay that back? It's not going to happen.
Yes.
So you then find a further disconnect that the banks and financial institutions are posing very impressive profits in a totally unproductive and declining economy. Where does that happen except perhaps in hell? So a company look at the last profit of Zenith Bank. Now go and compare, and I'm talking about all the banks. Go and compare their profits, go and check what they give to agriculture, go and check what they put into everything that drives development, go and even check whether they are supporting the genuine efforts of the central bank in some of these programs, but they are posting profits that's coming from the moon. They are not impacting employment, they are not impacting productivity, it is on rent. So when you collect and pay at 30%, and pay back, they post higher profit, but poverty is increasing. These are the disconnections or the dysfunctionalities that should worry any government that's talking about reform. Reform is not to have an event at the International Conference Center and read us a text on the decisions you've taken. Okay, with this now, this will happen to the economy, the usual English, the macroeconomic indicators. Please leave those indicators. Look at the condition of your cousins in the village. Can they now buy rice? That will tell you whether you're governing, that will tell you whether there's productivity, how much tomato is still coming from Jos. In the Northeast, do we still get the kind of sugarcane and wheat we are getting? Those are the worries. So that government ceases to be an elite engagement for speech making and transforms into actual impact on the life of people.
You know, Prof, I said to one of our guests the other time, be nice. Please be nice. Because even though I know that this can be really difficult, because really, I mean, Dr. Oluwatola, I mean, you would, you can easily relate with this, where you seem to have to report the same issues over and over again, and it would seem like the issues are not just going away. But there's something, beg your pardon, Professor Ikechukwu mentioned that I'd like you to speak, which leads me to the question that I wanted to ask you earlier about communication. He said that every spokesperson essentially saying that the information department of any ministry, department, and agency ideally should be furnished by the Ministry of Information of the federal government, or perhaps even of the states as well. I have had a challenge in my own heart personally, thinking about development from the perspective of communication. Unless we're able to communicate effectively to Nigerians that this is what is expected of you as a Nigerian, this reform of government is coming, and consequently we need to, put out information to people about that, it would look like nothing is being done, and consequently people will fill in the gaps whichever way they want. Take, for instance, the current one that a number of people are finding funny only because they don't understand it. The Federal Ministry of Aviation is changing name from the Federal Ministry of Aviation to Federal Ministry of Aviation and Aerospace. For the life of me, many people are wondering, what does that mean? Okay, how does it change the price of bread, to go back to Professor Ikechukwu's analogy the other time?
Chuckled.
So communicating these ideals of government to people is a challenge. How do we navigate that? Because it's going to be the same thing. If government comes up with difficult decisions that people do not understand, there's going to be a resistance. How do we ensure communication in a way that people will feel carried along and they'll be able to take ownership of government reforms?
Thank you very much. Ayo. I think one thing that government can do a lot better to communicate its work is, first of all, to improve transparency. I think that there are many media and accountability agencies, civil society agencies, who will willingly help communicate some of these words, the work that the progress that is being made in government and policy making, if there is more transparency coming from the public administrators. The reason why the public administrators are often reluctant to be more transparent is often because, on the one hand, they probably don't have much results to communicate. On the other hand, it may be that they've implemented policies that in reality was meant to serve themselves and not the people. And many times that's the case. So you have, just as an example, the CBN policy, because it was talking earlier, Professor Ikechukwu, about how certain banks can declare extra normal profits when there is, poverty in the land and the interest rates are so high that you can't really borrow to normal businesses. But then they're making a lot of money in exchange gains, because we have a policy that creates a very huge exchange rate differential that is just a rent for unscrupulous bankers. Then you've got a policy that was made that we all of a sudden just said, oh, we're changing all the Naira notes, and just to target a few individuals, we will impose hardship on the people. So the point I'm making here is that it is very critical for the new administration as it's coming in that it prioritizes evidence-based policy making, and that it is transparent on what its expected goals are in terms of how the policy it is making is going to affect the lives of people. What sort of economic models, what sort of modeling is informing that decision? How are you going from policy to results? What is the sort of that results chain? Be transparent about that. And if you're transparent about that, and civil society and media sort of have the metrics, at their fingertips to use FOI or to use dialogue to communicate these things, then things will be communicated. And I feel like a lot of it, many times when we communicate, it's also the truth that the fact that many times it's easier, the truth is there's complication here. It's easier to communicate, like Wike, when you said earlier that I built a road, people can see a road. But it's hard to communicate, oh, this village now has 10 more businesses than it used to have. But the truth is that we still have to communicate those things. We still have to not focus on just stomach infrastructure. We also have to focus on things that actually lift people out of poverty. And one thing I also wanted to comment on is this new administration seems very insistent on social development programs, and we've had lots of social development programs in the past, and just in the last few years of this outgoing administration, we had a whole ministry created, Ministry of Social Development and Humanitarian Disaster Recovery. Have we looked back to see all the monies that were distributed to individuals? Have we looked back to measure the impact that it's had? Have we looked back to examine this policy? We're now taking a loan of $800 million to cushion the effect of subsidy. But have we looked back at the interventions that we had when Jonathan first tried to remove first subsidy, and there was a similar fund? Have we looked back to really examine critically whether or not the funding or the stimulus got to the people they were supposed to get to, or it only got to politicians and politicians' nominees? Have we examined that? And have we examined that the people who got that money had a distinct impact on their productivity, on their livelihoods? These are questions we need to be asking ourselves. These are numbers that we need to be examining before we make policy. And when we do that and we're transparent about it, it will be obvious.
Well, Prof, you're a professor of civil strategic management and human capital development. So this question is essentially for you. In communicating these things, at the end of the day, I mean, you spoke about the fact that we have a huge number of multidimensionally poor people that need to be brought out of poverty. This is not going to be done by magic or conjuring anything. It has to be done through the activity that will be carried out by people. So in terms of the institutional reforms that, according to the president-elect, will get people that will assist the poor and vulnerable Nigerians, what shortfall in terms of human capital development do we have that need to be filled expeditiously so that, as you said, it's not just talk or what Alera would call white noise, but it is actually actionable information?
Actionable information. Sorry, let me touch briefly on the issue you raised earlier about communicating with the people. Government and the institutions must make a distinction between information dissemination and communication. If I come to your village and I want to talk to your people and I walk in there, introduce myself as Professor Ikechukwu Emenai, I've come to tell you about this and that and that. First, Ikechukwu is not a very popular name in that village. My dressing is strange. The topic I have is unusual. But supposing I walk in and Ayo walks in with me, just by citing him, I already have 50% endorsement. This one looks familiar. Now, what am I leading up to? In every environment, there are centers of power which drive communication. I mentioned our stint in the Ministry of Information. We got there, apart from instituting the requirement that every press secretary is actually resident information officer sends in something. The platform of special assistants in the country, while they are special assistant to the minister, what I did was to now make it a regular monthly meeting on briefing among special assistants on what government is doing across other ministries. That's how information spreads. Then you move across to the States where we're growing up. Sometimes you see a Land Rover driving around making an announcement. That was the work of Minister of Information.
Yeah.
That was also why under Chikelu, the press center, National Press Center was rebuilt so that you go there and get information about what's going on everywhere in the country without necessarily that thing coming directly just because the minister opened his mouth. So what am I leading up to? Information drilled down is critical to any form of reform, to any form of public administration, to getting buy-in from the people. Just like we're mixing up engagements in education, investing on infrastructure, you find also national communication for some time now has become expenditure on communication, not communication. Oh yes, we've talked to Nigerians, we advertise it in 10 newspapers. Are you aware that all the papers put together sell less than 2 million? Are you aware that more than 40% of that is actually unsold? Now, how many people have ever gone to take a newspaper in order to read a full-page advert from government? So you're recording expenditure. Okay, you've spoken to Nigerians on NTA. Nothing wrong with that. It has a wider spread. But that's also a population that has no less than 68% lack of power at any time you're talking. So bringing it all together, leaders should engage in real platforms around them. Use the media extensively. I mean, the media. In addition, look for power centers, create platforms. When traditional rulers are having their monthly meeting, let a briefing be sent. When imams are doing something, those are Nigerians, not people who just watch TV. Now, what was this substantive matter you raised now? See how I've run into a bush and I don't know my way out. What was your last question?
That's what happens when you're a professor and you're a lecturer, so I do understand. But you know, it's about around human capital development for...
Yes, human capital development.
Yes.
Thank you.
For
That's
helping
actually the national crisis.
For poverty alleviation, especially in the light of the institutional reforms, because when the reforms happen, it is people that will be used to execute them.
So in terms of human capital development, we take it at 3 levels. 1, at the level of political education. 2, at the level of the educational system. And 3, at the level of leadership, signaling, and impact. At the level of political education, parties exist because they have distinct ideas about leadership. If the parties begin political education the way we had it under Awo, under Sir Ahmadu Bello, under Zik, under very reputed leaders, you find that the reason you will be in APC and not PDP or NRC or whatever is because you accept the ideology. So parties must begin on a regular basis to ensure that every month there is at least one gathering or rally in one local government. You don't hold party solidarity meetings to win elections. You hold it to create and retain membership. So at that level of political education, you're creating mini ideologues who believe in something. That's at one level. So that it's not when everybody comes to give them money, they take it. Then at the level of the formal educational system, 2 recognitions. Now, at the level of, in the north, you speak of the Almajiri system, and some people will say it's useless, they don't know anything. Somebody who can memorize the Quran and repeat it is not unintelligent. His problem is that you have not given him numeracy and literacy of the type he can use to engage in the economy. So I go to an Almajiri school, I've done very well, I can speak English, I know my numbers, I have some entrepreneurship skill, nothing is lost. So that's human capital development. Then at the level of the formal Western educational system that's dominant, teacher quality, that has to be reviewed extensively. At the nursery level, except in some places where it's really monitored, what you have as teachers are house helps and secondary school dropouts. At this primary level, poor quality teachers. Secondary level, the same thing. At the university level, you find that better paying sectors of the economy have, in the last 35 years, drawn away some of the best scholars. Some are still among the best who are there, but they are in the minority. And so what you find that in many cases, third-grade scholars are producing fourth-grade graduates, and that's what we are seeing all over the place. Now, how does all of this impact the quality of national human capital at the level of knowledge and values is very low? That will naturally dovetail into poverty. Poverty of thinking, poverty of knowledge will lead to people thinking of their stomach without thinking of the multiply effect of accepting money just to eat at the moment. That's why you have people who are in Maiduguri. So you had the case of lecturers who were arrested, who were assisting Boko Haram. Their conception of the world has shrunk so much that this is the way they see it for the moment. So when government speaks of poverty alleviation, it's important to think of wealth creation. Because the moment you say poverty alleviation, what kicks into the mind of people is, well, what are we going to give them? They will come together, money is provided, or you say you're doing empowerment program, which is not wrong. But you see, these empowerment programs, there's usually no connect between the product and the market. You've called people, you've taught them how to make detergent and soap. The packaging will frighten any child, just citing it. You expect somebody will buy it, so they're not connected to the market. And that's why, like in the study we've done at the Development Specs Academy, you find that in nearly all the states of the Federation, if you take their records of empowerment in the last 8-12 years, you will not find for each one less than 40% of those who were involved in the previous one being involved. So it's now seen as a kind of recycling platform for sharing money. Productivity zero, unemployment going up, but yet each year you record thousands who were empowered economically. Well, so poverty alleviation, the concept should move to wealth creation in a sustainable manner. And the indices and the means of wealth creation should then be properly itemized and followed up. If you've trained 100 people, monitor them. If you train 2,000, monitor them. In fact, like in the one we did for, for Anambra State under P2B, 5,131 young people, they were monitored. After 6 months, the best 10 were identified and given extra money. They didn't know they were being monitored. So wealth creation in place of poverty alleviation. Because alleviation places you permanently on the dole. You need water. Take this pure water. I'll come back in the evening to give you another one.
It will seem like we're already starting another topic altogether, because HDI is a problem that has to be holistically taken care of. How that is going to happen with 70% fresh lawmakers in the National Assembly and 50% of governors just coming in who've never been governors before, perhaps never had any significant positions before, I guess we'll wait to see. But for now, we have to thank you, gentlemen, for being a part of our conversation this morning. Now, the promise is out, the word is out, expectations are very high. Our guests have given us some ideas as well as how to communicate these issues, as well as the people that will execute them. Professor Oke Ikechukwu, Leadership and Governance Consultant, Professor of Civic Strategic Management and Human Capital Development, as well as Dr. Toby Oluwatola, Center for Journalism, Innovation and Development. Gentlemen, thank you so much for your time this morning, and we wish you all the best.
Thank you for having us, Ayo.
Thank you very much.
And Alaro.
Yes, so we return after now to talk about something else, which is how do you remain healthy to do all these things we've been talking about all morning? That and more when we return. Please stay with us.
Where is Glory?
Excuse me, ma'am.
Hello? Where Glow now?
I dey here.
Glow, don't go village. Tell all our customer.
Everybody pay attention. See, now Glow berekete 10x. Now they dash me 10 times the credits when I load. Or even summer me double data join.
Yeah. Wait, so with 1.5 when they give all of us, so you they enjoy up to 15,000 naira credit and data.
And I say I never finish you. See, when I say we enjoy, if you not join Glow berekete 10x, when I go get 1,000 naira welcome credit. You just carry your phone, dial *777#. Finish.
Glow, you don't
Una still dey here. Hello, please, I'm looking for Glow. Please, save now Glow be dey fine. Now Glow be dey go. Okay, so
enjoy 10 times the value of your recharge on Glow Berekete 10X. You also get 1,000 naira for calls and data and double data bonus on your subscription.
you for staying with us. I hope you've been enjoying our discussions so far. Now, we're going to be looking at lifestyle and changes for a healthy living. What does that mean? Okay, they say you can make some changes to the things you do.
Yes, for
the
instance,
way you live your life.
you want to get fat. One of the adjustments you need to make is to eat more meat pie.
Many people are not in that list. More people are trying to lose weight and be healthy.
When you want to lose weight, some people say eating is not what.
Yeah, I told you before. He doesn't drink. Don't worry. He's normal. He's normal. He's normal. So your lifestyle includes any choice or action that you make that influences your life, whether in a small way or in a big way.
So in some way.
So it will include the things you eat, whether you exercise, and law, as they say in Yoruba, and so on and so forth.
You just say ABBL. We will understand what you're saying.
ABBL. Please translate into English.
Ati law.
Oh. Okay. So I mentioned one or two things. Ati law. So the Ati law will be added onto us by our guest this morning, who is a pharmacist and a lifestyle doctor. So is it Dr. Bukola Agunbiade?
Yes, it's Farm Dr. Bukola Agunbiade.
Farm?
No, it's not farm, the one you go to.
PHARM, yes.
Which I will desist from saying, because as far as I'm concerned, there's no such title. Miss Bukola Agunbiade. Mrs. Bukola Agunbiade. Good morning.
Good morning
thank you for joining us.
Good morning to you.
So
Thank you for having me.
Tell us how to improve our life.
Yes, it's very important.
How to live better.
Yes.
I'm gonna
be healthy.
Yeah, I'm going to begin.
Hold your horses.
Oh, sorry, have mercy.
How to live a better life, how to be healthier from the choices we make. Abby?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you very much. Over to you.
Let me begin by asking this one. Why is it difficult for people to make the changes they need to make? For instance, people are told, if you want to lose weight, you have to stop eating this, stop eating that. Oh, you are a cancer survivor. Shouldn't be eating this, shouldn't be going there. Why is it difficult to not do those things, to take those counsel?
I think from my own years of experience, because I can say my experience is as old as I am, because I'm a second-generation pharmacist. So I can tell you that I think in this part of the world, our value for life is very appalling. We don't really value living. Yes.
I don't understand.
Yes.
Essentially, are you saying people want to die?
I think so. Yeah. Yes. As a medical person, I can tell you that sometimes the way people behave, it seems as if they want to commit suicide.
Or they have a death wish.
Yes, like they have a death wish. Like, for example, I have a client who has had high BP for a while, and we've been trying to fix it, trying to reverse it. Only for me to check his status yesterday, and he was taking alcohol. And he told me it was a Friday. We were just trying to celebrate, and I'm wondering, hello? And on my way here, he sent me his BP measurement. It was high. What if I didn't see his status? I would have been giving myself that headache that was happening. Is this drug not working? What is happening? So I think our value for life, we need to check it. Our value for life is really low.
What kind of experience?
I've heard that said, but I don't think that people have very little value for their own lives. They may have for other people's lives, but I don't know about them having for their own life.
What baffles me, while you both are, spot on in that, but what makes it difficult I will imagine, for instance, that they don't want to die. That's why they would engage you, for instance.
Yes.
They want to do the right things.
Yeah.
But doing it, desiring to do it, is one thing.
Actually doing it is
another thing altogether. I'm very, very street right now.
For me, because I've also had near-death experiences personally.
Oh, really?
Yes. I've been a victim of misdiagnosis by my colleagues, and
tell us about that.
Okay, I think that was around 2018. I just had a baby and I was feeling very sick. I was always getting feverish. Just the slightest second, I could just go feverish, and within 10 seconds or so, I'll be fine again. I was going everywhere. Please check me. What is happening? They will tell me it's malaria. Oh, fam, you're not finishing your dosage. We know ourselves. After the first and second, we don't complete it and all of that. I kept calling everybody because I know that I cannot self-diagnose. I kept calling everybody. They kept telling me, do malaria, do typhoid, treat this, treat that. They weren't getting to it until I visited a clinical pharmacist who immediately saw me that was overweight. He told me, oh, you have a death wish, go and die now. My husband was like, hello, what kind of human being is this? I said, no, that I understand where it's coming from.
Tell me what's wrong.
So he just dismissed me that you're overweight, so everything will be wrong with you. You have a death wish, so bye-bye. My husband was like, why did we come here? We traveled all the way to see this one. I said, don't worry, let's get to it. And I got to it. I changed everything. I started exercising, changed my diet. If I'm cooking, you think we are preparing for a buffet. And I was able to calm down, and it was until I was able to reduce my weight that we were able to see what was hidden, which was a kidney stone. I had done several scans, but because I had liver fat and all of that, they could not really see. So until I was able to lose about 12 kg, that means I had lost part of those fats, was when they were able to see what was actually wrong. The kidney stone was so big and it was locked somewhere very, very hidden in my kidney. I don't want to...
12 kg is a lot of weight to lose.
But when I knew my life was dependent on it, and I know that I'm not ready to die right now, so I changed everything.
Okay, we're talking about lifestyle changes. So tell us how it is possible to actually lose 12 kg. Okay, maybe not 12, okay.
To lose any.
I think, like the topic, healthy living, okay, lifestyle changes for healthy living. I think it's about habits. You have tiny drops of water make a mighty ocean. There are small little things that you were doing that added up to become where you that got you to where you are. So it is the same habits that you would reverse.
Okay. Eating bread, eating what?
We'll get to all of that.
Let me ask you this, because what you just said now, I mean, there are a number of people who perhaps have had the same misdiagnosis right now.
Yeah.
But thankfully, you're also a pharmacist. It is natural that when people say, I want to lose weight, Instagram, how to lose... Why are you guys laughing?
The Google clients. Yeah, but that is what we are dealing with right now.
Why are you guys laughing? They're watching you right now. They say, you're making fun of them. So, are you saying we can't find it there? How to lose 12 kg in 3 months. They type it. This thing, keto, all kinds of things I've heard.
Yeah.
Is it that those things don't work? Or people need to find certain codes in order for it to work?
That's where the professionals come in. It's not a one-size-fits-all for everybody. In fact, depending on the particular phase you are in your life, determines what exactly will work for you. So that's why Google cannot solve all your problems. If Google could solve all the problems, then you wouldn't be needing doctors or pharmacists again. That is where professionalism comes in. Like, for example, a woman has like 5 phases in her life due to the hormonal journey and everything. So it's not something you use in your premenopausal phase. It's not the same thing you use at the menopausal phase. It's different. So that's why you still need to visit the professionals to give you a tailored treatment. And that's where we come in, giving personalized care.
People are very expensive.
When I was opening, I spoke about lifestyle changes, and I mentioned just 2 items. Now, what are the other lifestyle changes that can be made to improve one's life?
Basically, lifestyle changes is sitting on 4 pillars, but I've added another pillar because making 5
Okay.
because of our situation in our country. Okay, so the 4 pillars are: the first one, eat more, drink more. Eat more, we are saying eat more of the right things, balanced diet and all of that. Eat more of the right things, balanced diet and all of that. Drink more water. Most adults, I can tell you, 95% of adults are dehydrated. Because over the years, the thirst center in the brain has reduced.
Please, don't forget the other things, but 90% of our body is water.
Is water, yeah.
So you want me to overpopulate, to flood my body?
No, you lose part of that 90% over the course of the day. Your saliva is produced from water. Your eyeballs are lubricated from water. So you lose some of it as the day goes by, as you go on your activities. So to replenish, you should at least take between 3 to 4 liters of water, depending on your activity, depending on the temperature, the climate temperature, and all of that.
3 liters. Am I a fish?
You are from Niger Delta. You should be able to drink even 5 liters.
Between 3 to 4 liters every day.
You are from Niger Delta.
Okay, eat more, drink more.
So eat more, drink more. That's the first one. The second one is sleep more.
Sleep more?
Yes.
Madam, you know one of the things that one of the things that business people tell us, or is it leadership? I don't even know all those motivational speakers.
Aspire to respire.
Yes, thank you. Aspire to perspire.
To expire.
That, you know, that the biggest names in the world, they don't sleep 8 hours.
Our president-elect works better in the night.
Yes.
So he probably has about 2 hours sleep every night.
You know, so the biggest names, the Warren Buffett, the Dangotes, the Ofemiote, they don't sleep.
They don't sleep.
So if you want to be rich,
that's why they make money. If you want to be rich, stay awake all night.
So
even if you are doing nothing, stay awake.
That's a lie from a pit of hell, because the truth is, yes, amyloid fluid is produced by the brain. When you sleep, that is when this fluid
is produced.
No, that is when it's produced by the brain normally. Okay. So when you sleep, it's like a toxin in the brain that is produced when it's active. So it is when you sleep that it can flush out this toxin. So when you're not sleeping, you're slowing down your neurogenesis, you're slowing down your brain plasticity, you're slowing down the process by which this fluid is being flushed. You are setting up yourself for a doom. In fact, you're a ticking bomb if you don't sleep. Like, for example, in 2020, during the coronavirus, someone called me. She's a cousin to one of the governors then, and she called me. Hey, she's one of my clients. My uncle, you know, he's infected. What can you do? And all that. I said, I'm sorry. I don't think your uncle can survive. She said, why? I said, he has been a politician almost all his life. So that means he has not been sleeping for a really long time. So, and one of the major determinants is the brain in any healing process.
Get your uncle to sleep more.
It's already too late because the damage has been done over the years.
Oh dear.
So if you don't
number
sleep,
3.
That's number 3.
No.
Eat more, sleep. Eat more, drink more, sleep more.
Is 1.
Okay.
Sleep more is 2.
Oh, okay.
3. Love more.
Love
more.
Love more.
Love.
Oh, my darling, I'm coming.
Then the fourth one is move more.
Okay, exercise again. Okay, and then the number 5 that you added.
That I added, annual checkup, at least. Annual medical checkup, at the very least.
Annual check.
Okay. So you now start explaining them one after the other. Eat more, drink more. People in the village don't have problem eating because they can just go beside the house
and pluck something.
Pluck something, put them together. I still remember this story with excitement. My cousins and I, we left the village and went to the farm. On our way, we walked. Jesus, we walked. It's like walking from here to Tollgate. And we were, it's in the village, it's in the bush, so you wouldn't even know how long you were walking. So we were walking. We get to this place, we plucked pepper, we got to this place, vegetables, we got to that place, we saw palm kernel, and then we even got to one place we saw yam that has been abandoned. The thing was big. We rooted it. On our way, we saw one.
We can see the way you're calling it that you like food.
On our way, we saw one animal. Bush meat. We can go. So when we got to the farm settlement, we prepared everything. I still remember it is still the best pounded yam I've ever eaten.
Wow.
All my life. But that is the village. In the city. Those things don't happen. So when you say eat more, please help us understand, because to eat more, I can just jump in the next available restaurant or a fast food joint and all those
eat chicken
things.
and chips
and eat whatever.
Eat more is actually a double-edged sword. Is eat more of the right things and less of the wrong things. What are the wrong things? The processed food. Anything processed is not good for you.
So my sweet corn is...
I'm sorry, go and buy normal corn. Anything processed is highly... You have very high sodium, you have the removing of the fiber and lots of things.
What's it called? The preservatives, right?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
So you have a lot of those, which are not good for your system. So eat more of the right things. Like I said, it's about cultivating habits, the good habits that would really change the lifestyle. So when you want to eat, it's not just about serving yourself. You should have portion control. You can be using plates that are portioned.
The tennis ball again, the tennis ball.
So you are saying we should not be more than this?
Yes, for your carbohydrates.
Swallow.
And so then I eat plenty vegetable.
Yes. So you don't know work already now. Plenty vegetable, plenty protein, a little bit of fat and oil, then carbohydrate reduce it if you are not really doing
all these
much.
Things they told us in Form 3, health science. But it is doing these things that's the issue. You also spoke to it the other time, perhaps on the side that look, people may not even be able to afford some of these things. In fact, the definition of food for many people is eat to fill your tummy.
Okay.
Full stop. Anything other than that is extra.
I don't really think affording it is really an issue. Because I can tell you that from my own experience, the people who have had metabolic illnesses are the middle class and the well-to-do.
Okay.
The poor people who don't really... Yes, the people who can afford it are the ones who are not getting the right things.
Mrs. Agubiade, can you please tell me how the wrong things are the ones that taste very good?
Because they are processed. So they are processed to trick your brain and to trick your palate. And now that's the only way. If I'm a manufacturer, if I'm going into processing this, I'm just preserving something natural. What will make you come back to me? I must give you an experience that you won't forget. So part of that experience is in the tweaking it.
I'm talking about processed food. For instance, I am Isha and I love pounded yam. Then you say I should eat pounded yam that is this size. What? That is just my appetizer.
Punishment.
It's punishment.
No. See, that's
pounded yam and vegetable soup.
That's one of the things I work on when I'm speaking to people, counseling people. during our health coaching classes because we need to change the perspective. We grew up with seeing our forefathers eat that much quantity, the big sizes.
Especially the meat.
No, there's no issue even if you're taking a lot of meat.
Oh, really?
In some way, yes, at a particular phase of your life. There's no problem if you're taking a lot of meat.
So you can hear, I can eat meat.
I'm not saying you, because I'm not even... I'm not counseling you. I'm just saying it depends on the face.
Please, I don't want to hear what you're saying.
We grew up seeing them eating these big boluses.
Big portions,
Big portions. But it's because, like you said, it's in the village. They'll burn it out.
Yeah.
Because one thing I tell people, what you don't burn, the food you don't burn will burn you. So no problem. If you want to enjoy your pounded yam, enjoy it in that very big bolus. But when you are done, please eat the gym or go and start running down the stairs. No problem. I don't have any problem with it. Because the truth is, it's called carbohydrates. It's energy-giving food. We were told all of these things in our days of integrated science. So the question I ask myself before I take any meal is, is energy-giving food?
What do I need energy for?
What do I need this energy for at this present time? If I'm staying at home, if I'm working from home, I don't have a business eating like somebody who is going to go through like 5 hours traffic or four buses to get to the office.
Sabongeri to Abuja.
Exactly. If I don't need that much energy, today is for rest. If today is for rest, then I should take more fruits. More vegetables. But if tomorrow I'm going to be very busy, then no problem. You can eat it today, know you'll burn it tomorrow. And that tomorrow, when you are busy, you're just taking water or fruits. Then you become deficit and you become into balance out.
Is discipline.
It's just discipline. Yeah.
Easy for you to say. How about the drink part? You know that when we say drink, sorry.
You need a drink.
Yes, I need a drink.
Yeah.
I need a drink, you know. Is it peculiar to
the wrong drink
to your location, to where you live? Because when you say drink, I could drink chap woman or chap man or chap uncle. I can't drink chap anything.
Drink more water and water-infused fruits. Take teas, herbal teas, that is what I mean. I'm not even interested in all the fizzy drinks, all the beverages.
I don't want you to be I'm the one that is interested.
I don't want you to be interested. Just see them and pass. And if you take them, in fact, I don't even advise people to take them.
So if I want to eat the kind of pounded yam Alero is talking about, and you don't want me to use something to wash it down,
why would you take carbohydrates and take sugar? Everything is going back to become glucose at the end of the day. Why are you complicating it?
No, but when we're young, that's the kind of thing that we eat. We eat pounded yam, then we wash it down with a bottle of...
wash it down.
Something.
You know, it has to be washed.
When you were young, like you said, when you were young...
10 kobo at that time.
When you were young and you burn it off. But now you've been in the studio for like 2 or 3 hours. You've not been on your feet. So anything in your system.
Please. The fact that those don't believe I've been on my feet.
Okay.
Thank you.
So you can't burn it off.
Talking
you really can't.
For 2 hours on his feet.
Okay.
Yes.
On his seat. Okay, on his feet. Okay, no problem. But you can't burn it off. That's the problem. So don't load your system. So
essentially, you're saying
you don't need.
Then you spoke about sleep more.
Yes.
How many hours?
You see that sleep there? It's not just about sleeping. Some people will tell you, yes, I've had 8 hours sleep. I'm not rested. It's not just about sleeping, because sleep is like the stock markets. You can't just invest anytime you feel like it. You must invest at the right time. So you must go to bed by 10. Try and go to bed by 10, because the body has a rhythm on its own.
Madam.
Before the days of clock and everything.
Wait first.
Yeah.
Somebody is living in Mowe.
Okay.
This is our traffic for now.
Yes.
Between Mowe and Toll Gate, and Berger, at least 3 hours.
3 hours, yes.
Woke up around 3 a.m., left home 3:30. get to the office 10 a.m.
In VI.
VI. On the way back,
goes through the same traffic.
left the office around 6 p.m. Get home around midnight, please. Is it the 10 p.m. should start in the bus?
If you can start in the bus, make do of all you have. Make do with what you have. Nap in the afternoon.
Have a nap in the bus.
In the bus. There's no problem. Because I was going to get there, that one important risk factor for your lifestyle is your job. And that is something a lot of our doctors don't take into consideration. Is your job. Your job is a major determining factor
of your lifestyle.
Of your
health.
And your health, yes, of your lifestyle and your health. Like, for example, I was speaking to a nail technician during the corona time. She was having lung difficulties breathing. She couldn't taste, but she couldn't tell anybody because she was afraid that they would just label her as, she's already infected with corona. So, but thank God she has a client who knows me. So when she was able to voice out eventually, that was like, oh no, don't worry. I have a doctor that will treat you specially. That is not don't conclude this corona yet. So when I met her, I told, oh, you're a nail technician. You make use of all of these chemicals. Chemicals, even the dust from the nails and everything, they affect your lungs. So these are the things we need to treat first. And I had to tell her, coach her on what to do. She should be using nose masks, industrial nose masks and everything. That is her job. The way I would treat her is different from the way I would treat a bricklayer who is also exposed to cement dust and all of that. It's different from the way I would treat a smoker who is self-inflicted. They are different. So another important risk factor in your lifestyle is your job. You need to understand, you need to go for occupational therapy to understand the risk factors attached to the kind of job that you do.
And how to adapt it to your lifestyle change. Yes. Because this thing you're saying about sleeping more, it really is something many people know. You spoke about politicians, for instance, and they are quite prominent now, as so many other people, young people, are going to want to get into politics. What would you recommend?
I would recommend deep breathing.
For them?
Deep breathing, yes. They can have, we have a little spirometer that you can carry along with you, that you can do this during the day. Deep breathing, because when you breathe deeply, it helps. Even when you're not sleeping as such, your body is still getting the required oxygen, not just the rest as such. Practicing yoga, then sleep anytime they can. You don't need to, if it's in the car, sleep. If it's sleep as much as you can. But deep breathing and yoga is very, very important.
It's not like you sleep everywhere. The person gets at an event.
No, not at events. Okay. I would also penalize them for sleeping at the plenary sessions.
How many hours of sleep a day is good, is healthy?
8 hours for an adult.
8 hours for an adult?
Yes.
And there was silence in the studio. 8 hours?
Yes.
Okay.
How about the little kids?
All right.
They can have as much as 10, 12, because they need it more because they are growing.
Okay.
So why must it be 8 hours for an adult?
Because there's a rhythm, like I said. Okay. There's a rhythm. There's nature. It's already programmed. So there's a rhythm. You need to get to the REM stage before you get to the RAM stage. There's a rhythm.
And if you don't?
And if you don't, of course, if you don't, you are going to activate your adrenal glands. You are going to activate your stress hormone, which is the cortisol, and that's opening up yourself for a lot of things.
Is it possible for you to sleep and not attain REM?
Yes, it's possible.
Nights in a row?
Yes, it's possible.
It's possible. Okay.
It's possible.
Okay.
Why?
And that is the one that's really restful, isn't it?
Yes.
You need to get to REM, otherwise you're not really rested.
No, help people understand the difference between sleep and rest, because some people mistake it.
Oh, okay.
I have heard the term restive sleep. So people don't, you have not been rested. But I'm sleeping now.
No. You can be sleeping by just closing your eyes and you're very conscious, especially our mothers. When you're talking to some mothers, they'll be like, in fact, it has become a badge of honor when a woman says, if a cockroach should pass, I know where. I'll be like, do you think this is... Is anybody going to give you an award for this? I mean, it's like a normal thing. How good is your sleep, madam? I sleep. But if cockroach should pass, I know where it has passed. I'm like,
what kind of sleep
sleep is this? You need to sleep deeply. But as women, sometimes, especially depending on the menstrual cycle and all of that, but by the time you understand yourself and you practice deep breathing before sleeping, you'll be able to get to the REM.
You give us a little demonstration of that deep sleeping, and here is why. There are a number of people watching us from different parts of the world right now who have to have 3 jobs, 4 jobs, just to be able to, what's the word you used earlier? Meet up. You know. So what help us, because they also are in this, it's one world. They also are in the same space as everybody else. So beyond the people who are in Nigeria, who are in parts of Africa, wherever you are in the world, what is it that is essential for them to do? I mean, help us understand when you say deep breathing. Can you give us a demonstration?
Okay, deep breathing basically is just about filling up your lungs. You breathe through your nose. You fill up your lungs as much as you can. You hold it in. You hold it in for a while, for as long as you can. Then you breathe out through your mouth.
I've seen some things that some people circulate on.
There are apps for it. There's a small equipment that you can use, which is a spirometer, which as you go on, it shows the level at which spirometer, yes, SPIRO meter, yeah.
Okay.
So it shows the level of as you go on using it, you see that your lung capacity is changing, is increasing.
Okay.
And you swim. Yes, swimming is also something that can increase your lung capacity. When you swim a lot, it increases your lung capacity. So by the time you are breathing, even unconsciously, the lung capacity is a lot. So you can take in more air, and of course your organs will get more oxygen.
Let's move on, because we still have 3 items to look at. Love more.
Love more. Yeah. I think we are getting to a level in the world where we are becoming socially, we are isolating ourselves socially.
Socially disconnected.
Yes, socially disconnected. In fact, you go out with your friends, you guys want to hang out, and
you're all on your phone.
70% of the time, everyone just typing.
Yeah.
It's so annoying. It's funny anyway. But speaking to other people, hugging, for example, increases oxytocin. Speaking to other people, having positive relationships are things that we underestimate, because when you are in, maybe you've experienced an heartbreak or lost a loved one or in an abusive relationship, your body tends to produce more adrenaline, which is a flight mode. So when your body is producing adrenaline, you do not expect your body to be digesting at that time. You do not expect it to be going through any growth process or the normal metabolic processes at that time, because you are in a flight mode. That means flight or fight. You are ready to fight or you are ready to fly. So the body shuts down some functions at that time. So, which increases your stress hormone, the cortisol. It decreases your metabolic functions, a lot of things, up until GI disturbance. Your digestive system will slow down.
Essentially, you're saying hating on someone is injurious to lifestyle. I mean, that you hate someone or you're angry with somebody.
Yes. Oh, you are doing yourself a whole lot of harm. Just have a positive outlook. Build, only allow positive energies around you. Have healthy relationships.
These things are so easy to say, but help us understand, because, you know, we're talking about lifestyle changes here, right? Many people don't even know that these things have such far-reaching effects.
They do. we've seen that people who have gone through divorce or have lost some loved one along the way in their life are more they are more probable they have more incidences of cancer than people who have had.
Say that again, please. So those who have
lost a loved one, or some troublesome people,
or traumatic experiences,
they are more likely to have cancer.
More prone to cancer.
Yes.
So, being envious, being hateful.
No, it depends. Some people are envious. They are hateful by just comments. Some people will not even speak it out. They just have it bottled up. That's another thing. I know people who if you check their BP, they are fine, and you can say they are troublesome by just speaking up for themselves. Once they've expressed themselves, that's all.
Oh, okay.
So that might not be a problem. But there are people who are not happy and they bottle it up and they process and all of these things. You just need to remember when you're angry and all of that, adrenaline factory has opened. And when you remember that, you just shut it down.
So it is one thing to be displeased and bottle it up.
Yeah.
It's another thing to be displeased and voice it.
And voice it out.
Now, how about those who are displeased, voice it out, and still keep it in?
And that's what I'm saying, that I would advise them to stop, because they should always remember that your adrenaline factory has just started work. Once you have anything troubling you, that's the way God has made us, so that we can survive. So that when we see stressful situations, when the adrenaline starts production, we know we are supposed to flee that situation. So, but if the fleeing is now within your system, then flee it from within.
Okay, so the fifth one is
move more.
Move more. Exercise.
The fourth one is
move more. Yes.
We've had a fitness person here.
Yes, I think I watched that episode.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Who told us, look, you can do this even in your office, at home, wherever. Just make sure that your joints are always moving,
yeah.
and the rest of that. I think we know you do it. You have to front it. You know, who
I feel the need to move. I've been sitting down for almost 3 hours.
Well,
then another thing to moving more is also, in this era of working from home, it's very important that you expose yourself to the morning sunlight for vitamin D production.
Okay.
Because working from home, we've seen that most people that are working from home are likely to, apart from being lonely, because vitamin D is not being produced, and there's also the reuptake of serotonin and some neurotransmitters is not going into the normal completion. They are more likely to have depression, anxiety, and all of that. So part of Move More is also try and expose yourself to the morning sunlight, because vitamin D is very important for your mental health.
If the sun doesn't come out, can I go and do fireworks?
No.
What's that fire?
No. Your body knows when the sun is not coming out. That is it. Your body knows when the sun is not coming out.
In fact, it could be an old wives' tale. I don't know. I had a fracture in my shoulder once. I fell and fractured my shoulder. And an old lady said to me, you must get out into the early morning sun between 9:30 and 11.
Yes, it's not an old.
Get out and make sure that you get the sun.
Yes, because vitamin D is prerequisite.
Shoulder. It'll help it heal faster.
Vitamin D is a prerequisite to the absorption of calcium in the system.
So it's not an old wives' tale.
So it's not an old wives' tale.
But if I go out at 3 o'clock, Uncle?
It's not the same.
You will burn.
That sun doesn't help.
That sun doesn't help as much.
Oh.
Yeah.
That one is vitamin.
It's a specific.
Yes.
But most people who go to the office in an air-conditioned car, come back in an air-conditioned car, work in an air-conditioned office, eat in an air-conditioned restaurant, and all those things. How do we get vitamin D?
It's a conscious thing. Try and hold one of your meetings outside.
In the sun.
In the sun. Maybe you need to speak to a colleague in the office. Just say, let's step out.
Are you serious?
Yes. See, the thing is, the reason why I said it's about habits. if you look at the Koreans, if you watch their film, you'll see that they are enlightened. They know all of these things. You will see that some of their offices, they might have a boardroom that is in an open environment or a courtyard kind of arrangement, such that they're exposed to direct sunlight.
Okay, is that also why some offices have glass all around?
Glass will reduce the penetration. So it's not. I think that one is just aesthetic.
It's just aesthetics.
But if you are enlightened, you will know that. You know that. Take one of your meetings in the sun, or maybe just have a brief meeting in the sun. Not up to. Though you are supposed to use SPF protection on your skin, so that you don't also expose yourself to ultraviolet rays.
You all say that early morning sun doesn't have much.
Yes, it doesn't have.
Doesn't have much.
Ultraviolet rays.
Ultraviolet rays.
Yes. So we hear. Now that we have gone through your list.
No, we've not gone through the last one. The last
annual checkup.
Annual checkup, yes.
That is a major thing for this part of the world, because we don't have that habits. We don't have that doctor or hospital visiting habits. Before a doctor will see a patient, be sure that that patient has gone through the patent medicine shop to the pharmacy shop before coming to see a doctor.
And perhaps also gone to see Alagbo.
Alagbo, yeah. Increasing the chain of command.
Okay. But then, talking about this checkup of a thing, many hear of it. Many think about it, but the number one thing that comes to mind is it's too costly.
Expensive is relative. Expensive is relative. The basic checks that I know of are not, is not more than 30,000. The basic things
that are important
that are very, very important.
And it's just once in a year.
And it's just once in a year. So 30K for once in a year, even if you are saving 2,000 every month, I think, or 3,000 every month, you should be able to do that. Because the thing is, the same people are saying these medical checkups are expensive. First of all, I'll tell you, a stitch in time saves 9. And you are servicing your generator. An average Nigerian has a better pass my neighbor in his house. And whether you like it or not, you spend up to 3,000 every month to fix that gen. You have a car, you spend more than that to fix your car. But the most important machine that you have, which is your body, yourself, you are not saving up towards it. So I think it's expensive is relative.
Okay. Help us understand. There are, one of the things that came to my mind to ask you is about parenting. Parents go to work in the morning, come back very late, and the children, literally have to be at the mercy of. And I'm pretty sure that that's also one of the lifestyle changes that are important for the future of both the children and the parents as well. What are the things that you have seen and that you think that you might want to propose 1 or 2 adjustments in our lifestyle so that we build for the future?
Okay, like for example, I noticed from my experience that our kitchen is becoming a war zone, or what will I call it? Our kitchens are becoming poison centers. Yes.
Also.
Because most mothers, because they are too busy, are now feeding their kids with processed foods. And in fact, being overweight, children that are overweight have become have become a status thing.
Well-fed children.
Well-fed. And that is very sad, because you are predisposing these children for a lifelong doom.
Wow.
An overweight child, I can assure you, has 80% chance of being diabetic or having cardiovascular diseases as it grows older. So it starts from home. I understand we are getting to that age that we are becoming very busy. But I think it's not even in being busy. I think we have the wrong interpretation of things, because I'm also really busy. But for example, for my last child, because I had him when I had to go through that lifestyle changes myself. So he grew up seeing all of us taking fruits, lots of fruits at home. In fact, I don't buy biscuits, I don't buy sweets in my house. We don't buy cereal. We take lots of fruits, take gari and granules if you have to snack or something. But we don't, we take more fruits and vegetables and all of that. We take more of fruits and vegetables. If you give my last child a pack of biscuits and watermelon, he will collect watermelon from you. Not minding even if that biscuit is Danish cookies or shortbread or whatever, because that is what he's used to. If we are traveling, we eat garden egg, take plantain chips that are not processed and all of that. I think it's about the options, but sometimes it has become a status thing. That you take your kids to the church and you want to flaunt and you have to give them Capri-Sun and give them, as in, I get irritated when I see it, like, what are you forming for? Don't worry, now your child is coming to be my patient very soon.
God help us all.
So I think it's just about the options. We need to give better options.
When people get really desperate, they just hear about a treatment that someone went through and they want to go for it. For instance, I've been hearing about stem cell all kinds of things. To me, it sounds to me very, very, what's the word now? Aesthetic. What's that? Someone has accused me of being bombless. I'm happy. Thank you very much. Can be looking at your phone for now. But you know, so what are the risks people need to factor in before taking on any of these aesthetic treatments, all in the name of they want their lives to be better, which will definitely alter their lifestyles?
I think I understand where you're coming from. The bomb and all of that, all the enlargement and all of that. Of course, the people going, if you are going through any aesthetic treatments, you know definitely that you have exposed yourself to any side effect that comes with it. But I would advise that if you are convinced that you have to go through any aesthetic treatment, make sure you do it with a professional, because you don't.
Why is it necessary? I'm just asking.
I think it's a personal thing. I'm a lifestyle doctor, and I've seen people who I know, if they look better, their mental health will be better. So really? We need to weigh, yes. So we'll weigh the risk and the benefits. So if the benefit outweighs the risk, of course, we'll advise them to go for it. Yes.
They look better.
Yes, they will feel better.
They don't look good.
I'm sorry, they grew up like that. That is what they think. That is what they know. You really can't do much. And that's why that's one of the reasons why I decided to go into lifestyle medicine, because I understand that there are some things you discuss with a regular doctor that he does not understand. You discuss with a regular pharmacist, they don't understand. But in understanding people's lifestyle, you understand what they have to deal with. Like, I treat a lot of celebrities and lots of that. So, for example, I'm treating a celebrity and she has to change her figure to suit into the perception that she's building. Being a lifestyle doctor, I would make sure she gets it from the best, but would also tweak her lifestyle to suit what she has gone through or what she's about to go through, so that we can reduce the effects, the risk minimally. And you can't question people's choices. That's the truth.
Question, no.
Yes.
I think we are done here this morning, because this one that you are starting is another fire altogether.
Mrs. Bukola Gumbiade, pharmacist, lifestyle doctor. You've raised a lot of things. Drink 3-4 liters of water a day. You know, sleep
it's easy.
8 hours
Just start with 1 liter in the morning. Start with 1 liter in the morning.
Okay.
Immediately you get up from your bed, take 1 liter. Then as you go by the days, just take
1 liter of water as soon as you wake up.
Just 2 sachets of pure water. Just 2.
It's okay.
I agree.
Thank
you very much.
I try to drink water in the morning. By the time I'm halfway through the bottle, I'm bloated.
Halfway through the glass.
You take it gradually. Or you warm up the water.
Thank you very much for coming this morning and closing our program for us today.
Thank you for having me.
The 20th of May 2023, which means we're just 9 days away from the inauguration of our new government.
And 7 days away from Children's Day.
Says the child.
Yes, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mommy.
Thank you very much for being with us today, and we hope that we will see you again or be with you again next week with a fresh edition of Sunrise. I am Alero Edu, wishing you a very happy weekend indeed and a blessed week ahead of you.
I'm Ayo Makinde. Please pray for Nigeria. She needs you now as you do need her. Have a wonderful rest of your weekend.
And put Nigeria first, always.
Bye for now.